Discord. Says it's working on it. We'll see.
All right, all right.
Now we're live.
There we go.
So what I was saying, Will, was like the thing about this thing I was surprised was how short Gary is. I always thought he was like, 6'5". I didn't realize the man was 5'2". That was crazy.
Well, thanks for giving me some extra links, Rob, as you always do when you're complimenting me. No, but I'm actually 4'11", and
So when we took that picture, we just had to have Gary stand on a stool in between us.
It was the crab bucket. Remember, we flipped the crab bucket over. It was like, Gary, stand on the bucket.
That's right. Get on the bucket, Gary. We're taking a picture.
It's weird. It's I've never been known for like my height. It's just the extremely large penis. That's what I have going for me.
Family. So it's still early. The families are here.
So sorry. We're a family show. I apologize. And to be fair, I'm not talking about length or anything. I just mean girth. Just very girthy.
We lost a viewer. We lost one viewer because of that. That's what it is. Wrestling with the MMA. He's here. He's here to stay. He says you're 3'5".
Yes.
Oh man.
In his heart.
In the pants.
Gosh.
Oh, just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh man.
Like 2 feet.
Scooby's here. What's up, Dave?
Scooby's here. Feeling good. Sorry, I've already taken us way off the rails. This is already a failure of a show, thanks to me.
It can only get better. That's the good news.
All right. I'm just working on a Facebook post here to let folks know we're live. What you got over there? What was that squeak? Was that a cork? Oh yeah, the proper
okay.
12.
Okay.
Sunday night. Living it up.
Yeah.
Had too much beer last night. You guys just kept buying them for me. It's like y'all were trying to.
Shoot, Gary left with 8 of them. There were 2 that we left behind, man. The two big rollers we just left behind.
What?
Yeah.
I could be
Maybe that homeless guy will get on it. I don't know what
What
that
was he saying,
about.
man? He said something like someone was trying to accuse him of something, and it was like, you got my back, right? We're like, yeah, man, we got your back.
He walked up and he was just like, they say I accuse and like messing with little kids and stuff, man, or something like that. And I was like, well, dude, this ain't the place to be hanging out right now. Like,
yeah, run, dude.
It's like
run.
little kids all over the place.
Like, they coming.
I was like, I hear you, bro, but this is a table with little kids at it, so maybe not the best place to be. He was like, oh, okay.
It was fun though. What was the place called? It was called the
Birds Fly South.
Birds Fly South, man. It was cool. And then the taco place in that little venue was known as
White Duck.
White Duck, dude. And we got that carne asada taco, man. It was on point.
It was exceptional. I liked it. It was the first time I've been there.
Yeah.
If you're ever in Greenville, folks, that's where you want to be.
I'm always in Greenville. That's good.
Oh yeah, well, you're not helping the argument then, I guess.
You weren't talking to me. Okay.
Nope.
No.
Oh man. Scooby, MMA, how you guys doing tonight? James Lawrence is here.
Nice. Pop my chat out here.
Yeah, that's what I just did.
All right.
I'll tell you what, I had to grab this Bang energy drink right here because I was
What'd you do with the 8 that you took home last night? You finished them yet, or are you working on tonight?
No, I have some of them right next to me right now.
Nice. They served I ended up not having one, but they served a peanut butter stout. I don't know if you guys drink stouts or not out there in the chat, but there was a bunch of like delicious looking stouts, and that's what we like: oatmeal stouts, coffee stouts, peanut butter stouts, and ended up going with the higher ABV stuff on draft. I can't remember what it's called, but it was delicious. Had a lot of fun, man, hanging out with Jennifer and Gary and Natalia and Will and Sam. Yep. My man Sam. Mm-hmm. How's he doing today?
I don't know, man. He's just been hanging out in his room. So
playing Roblox and Minecraft and whatnot.
He's building. I think he's building a train with Legos.
Yeah.
No, man. He's a little engineer. He's not like a train engineer, like an engineer.
He's in there like engineering things right now.
Yeah, he just comes up with stuff. He'll just find like household objects and build stuff.
Nice.
Nah.
Sorry, guys. I was sharing this to some of the wrestling groups on Facebook here.
Then today we had so much good food. I'm telling you, man, the last 6 or 7 days we've been eating crab legs and oysters every day, man. We crab legs and oysters. Like I'm like, while we're here, we can get steak anywhere. We're gonna eat seafood. Today it was like back to reality. It was McDonald's. Nothing wrong with McDonald's, you know. It was McDonald's. It was Cheez-Its and sunflower seeds. And then you know, Tanya put in a really good frozen pizza that she got, like one of the like Food Lion brand frozen pizzas, you know, in the cardboard box. She threw that in. That was pretty good. But man, we had some great food in Myrtle Beach and on the way there, and not so much on the way back. But last night, man, the tacos were, whew, I slept soundly last night.
That's all you gotta do. Give
you were telling me. So, yeah. Well, let's go ahead and start. What's up, you beautiful people? This is Gary Horde, and this is the NWA, the podcast celebrating the past, present, future, history, legacy, and tradition of one of the greatest pro wrestling entity of all time. We're talking about the National Wrestling Alliance. I'm here with my host, Will Martin, and Rob Stinson.
Woo!
And there, at least somebody's making a sound. If you follow us on social media, you've seen that Rob Stinson was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and he made a special trip all the way back in, coming into the upstate of South Carolina, and so that he could see us. And that was nice. I appreciate that, Rob. Thank you.
It was a good time.
No problem, man. It was great, man. It was destined to happen. We're like, you know, actually, this was Tanya's idea. We were coming back, and she was like, you know, let's extend this vacation a little bit longer. I don't have to be back until I come back on calendar on Wednesday. That's when I go back to work. And so we're like, hey, man, you know, we're going out to Toccoa. That's where I went to college. I did my undergraduate work out there, and that's not far from Greenville in Anderson, South Carolina. So we're like, let's stop there, man, and you know, for the first ever in-person live Bearded Trio Summit. So if you felt, I tweeted earlier, if you felt something going on in the cosmos yesterday, about this time, that's what it was.
Yeah, if things just inexplicably felt right, that's what it was.
Mm.
It felt right for me. I can say that for sure. Yeah. No, it was really cool hanging out with these guys. Couldn't. How long could it last before it got dirty with Rob?
All I know is that Piper was there for the visit, and the moments before we're leaving, you know, Gary was just explaining the intricacies of Rent the Musical, just tearing up, you know, with the I'll Cover You song, which is a beautiful musical. It's beautiful, but I've got the footage. I'm going to actually release it.
There were no tears involved. No tears involved.
All right, it was just eye irritation, I guess.
Yeah. It was really dusty outside. No,
Nah,
man.
it was fine,
Hey,
man.
listen.
They're sitting there doing sing-offs, doing little Broadway battles with each other. It was cool. We had a blast, man. Then, of course, Natalia and Jennifer are like, okay, we're going to do this every weekend from now on. We're like, we're up, man.
Yep. Accurate.
Yeah.
We've already got a group chat set up with us and the wives, so now we can all keep in touch. So that's good.
Yeah, and if anybody was wondering, Will is the responsible one. We've discovered that too. Like Will is the
designated.
Had enough. I'm gonna be the DD. I'm gonna be straight and just sit here and no, he had it down. He was like the one that wrapped it up. Even Will's wife, I think, was just like kind of chilling. Like she was like, yeah. Well,
we're sitting here like we're like, man, Will, you got a perfectly intelligent 12-year-old son here who can figure out how to drive a vehicle. Come on, relax.
And he's only had like one drink, so he is fine.
Well,
but
if responsible means that we left like an hour before y'all, then yeah, I guess I'm the responsible one. But no, I had a good time, and it was a blast, man. I can't wait to do it. My only regret is, I feel like we should have gone live from our phone or something and done like a little live chat and gotten everybody else in on it.
Dang, I wish I'd have thought of that too.
It would have looked a lot like this because you think, man, we sat there and talked about Nick Aldis and Eddie Kingston all night last night. Just like, you hammering it out, dude.
You would think, we're hanging out with our families and stuff, and we would talk about just life, and we just still talked about wrestling. That was a beautiful thing.
The funny thing is, like, we were still discording each other. like we're sitting there within 3 feet. Gary is discording the menu to us, and we're like, Gary, man, I'm a foot away. Just tell me what's on the menu, bro.
Old habits.
It's like I put it in the Discord.
Oh God. We want to say thanks to everybody who's joining us right now. I mean, it's kind of last minute. We're going on a little bit later than normal, and we're here on a Sunday night. And you guys, I know, have your whole lives and work week ahead of you, and you're still hanging out with us. So shout out to Wrestling with the MMA. Shout out to Dave Scooby. James Lawrence is here. The Nation Show is here. I'm going to assume that's probably Joe. And Mark is here. Question of the day guy in the house, he says. What's up, Gary? What's going on, Rob? I want to come on one day soon. We do need to get that guy on.
Yes. Mark Griffith, man. That's my brother right there. That dude is good people, and he is we were just like, man, we've had some great guests on Piper's Notes, but like, and Piper really, she'll get in. One of the things, like if you watch Piper's Notes, she comes out of her shell more or less, and she's getting a lot better. But she'll lock up, man. She'll like get starstruck with some of these people, and it's like Mark Griffin made her feel so like at home, man. It was just one of the funnest times. He's going to come back. We're going to have him on like 4 or 5 times a year. He was so good, and it was cool. He's like, if I could draw a comparison, I mean, he's like nobody can replicate Wrestling Days, but in just terms of like just that sweet, fun, hilarious spirit, man. If we have an American Wrestling Days, it's Mark Griffin, the question of the day guy. That's him, man. He is he's just got such an infectious personality. I feel like, and I'm not here trying to freaking fanboy out for anybody, but he, like Mark Griffin, that dude is one of my favorite people.
And if you're single, Mark, Rob's not, he'll make arrangements. So, no, but NWA Gold is here too. Wrestling with the MMA. Stinson, you post too many dang pictures, dude. Like, what's going on with you? I got people asking me about the Gilmore Girls shirt. Like, you got any footage of Gary doing scenes from the Gilmore Girls?
That's what the people want to know.
I got some crap today about us not social distancing. Like, it was just all out on the interwebs today. But yeah, what could he do? I was happy to see my boys, so it was fine.
I was like, I did too, man. I know that Will and Gary are a little more woke than I am, but I was like, I wonder what are these guys gonna feel about a hug, man? Is that cool? We just hugged it out, man. It was like natural. It's like it's like I'll I'm gonna throw caution to the wind. This is worth it to me.
I was holding my breath the whole time just in case.
We did have our masks though. We did wear masks, so
we just obviously weren't going to wear them in a photo. So
no,
we had our masks and we were responsible.
I told everybody I wore my mask anytime I interacted with anybody that wasn't in our little circle there. Like, we had our own table. Like we were in our
we were distanced from everybody else. Every time we went up to order food or drinks, we had our mask on. So we did everything that was responsible, you know. So we didn't. We
that's
made
all you could do.
Yeah, that's all. You know,
there's no way we were all going to see each other in person for the first time at the same time and not make out. So I don't know what you want. It just is what it is.
It is what it is, man.
COVID be damned. There we are. Well, we got a lot to talk about tonight. I mean, I say a lot. I mean, we got a lot of Eddie Kingston stuff to talk about. We're seeing a collision course in the works between Nick Aldis and Eddie Kingston. And I know all day long, all three of us have been nothing but Eddie Kingstoning all day. Like we've been just looking at Eddie Kingston interviews and reading about Eddie Kingston. Like we're excited. I mean, because I already knew, because straight up, I didn't know Eddie Kingston except for really like seeing him randomly, like clips and stuff like that. But when he came into the NWA, it was my first encounter with him, like full time. And that guy was top notch, and I think we've said it like 100 times. And even James Lawrence in the chat is asking for his dollar for predicting this match was coming. But yeah, I think when we've called out feuds that we'd like to see, Kingston and Aldis has always been on that list. And then this past couple of weeks, it's started to happen. Eddie Kingston issued the challenge. Aldis seems to have accepted. We haven't gotten much more news beyond that, but so because of that, the potential matchup that's coming up at some point, probably in an empty arena somewhere, we're going to be talking about Eddie Kingston tonight. Just an Eddie Kingston celebration, if you will. And other than that, though, do you guys, before we dig into all of that stuff, anything in wrestling been catching your interest? Any news you've heard of, or anything else you want to talk about? Chat room, anything you guys got? Before we jump into Eddie,
nothing here, man. I did. I don't know if you guys saw. I did reopen the NWA podcast title challenge. That was something that kind of was going a little bit before, and then things got rocky in the wrestling biz, as we all know, and kind of got shuffled. But I was keeping track of all that, trying to put together a nice tournament bracket of nominated, submitted title belts, but just didn't have enough to really make it, fun. So I kind of reissued that challenge. I've gotten a pretty good response, but if you guys haven't seen that, we're going to do a user voted tournament bracket of title belts, any title, any promotion, any point in history. Just post a picture of the belt itself and put hashtag NWA pod title challenge. You can find that on my tweets or the NWA pod at the NWA pod Twitter account as well. And yeah, man, hoping to get a bunch of those together and putting together a nice little tournament. I think that'd be fun for everyone to vote on. And obviously 10 pounds of gold, it's like an honorary nomination. You don't have to nominate that one. We all know that is definitely in the tournament. So think of something a little more obscure or a little more underknown or underappreciated, just to make things interesting would be pretty cool. So yeah, get those in if you hadn't already.
I wanted to bring attention to hot tags, which is I know that Will is going to be humble here, but we're starting something new on our channel in collaboration with our brother in the NWA fam, Jason Cayley, out of the Alliance blog every Friday at 3:00 Eastern time. Is that right, Will?
Yep.
And they're going to basically run through, and this is easy. This is easy content. I know that we like to come in here and hang out, and you might be hanging out here with us for 2 or 3 hours. You never know with our on NW After Dark, but the hot tags is very easily digestible. It's 15 to 20 minutes, and they're talking about the issue of the week, and they're just going at it to the great minds. In my opinion, Will and Kaylee, and talking about what's really hot at the moment in wrestling, and we're just so happy to be able to to build this synergy and this collaboration with a true friend, and in my mind, one of the most indispensable voices in the business, period, and that's Kaylee. So he's working with us every Friday at 3:00. This is the NWA podcast Hot Tags right here on this channel. So that's big news. We saw the first episode this last Friday, and they went through their takes on empty arena matches, and that is relevant for what we're going to be talking about tonight, because it may be that this epic story that's about to be told, this piece of Greco-Roman mythology that we're about to witness, may take place before no audiences, or it may play. We don't know that, but it's possible. So. And that came up also, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to have this big discussion tonight about Kingston and the real world champion Nick Aldis. So yeah, that's big news.
I'm super humbled to be working with J Cal on that little segment that we kind of brainstormed together to put together, because we just want to create, like you said, as much synergy as we can between This Is the NWA podcast and the Alliance, because we consider ourselves an alliance, when it comes to NWA fam and NWA content. And so it's a fun little discussion. We did talk about empty arena, and it is probably a great place to start, because we ended the chat just with rapid fire question. I asked J Cal, hey, is Nick Aldis versus Eddie Kingston going to be the first NWA empty arena match we see? And we both agreed that, yeah, it probably will be. And if there's two guys who can pretty much start from nothing and just go on promos alone and a little bit of Twitter beef, it's those two guys. If you're going to pick two guys on the roster and have me bought in from the get-go, that's who it needs to be. So I'm on board with this. I love that we're talking about Eddie Kingston tonight. I think it's going to be a fun chat. But I can't wait to see when that happens. Not if, honestly, for me, it's when. And so it's more of a timeline thing. So, yeah, man, let's just dive into Eddie Kingston. Let's get to know him a little better and shed some light on him.
Yeah. I would say too, just to throw it in there, the chat's been going off about it. Well, I guess the biggest news, the only major news, it has been kind of a slow weekend for news, but for those that care, Evil did beat Naito in New Japan Pro Wrestling and became a double champion, a world champion and a intercontinental champion. Evil's 2020 is, I was gonna say 2020 has been good for Evil.
And you wouldn't be wrong. You wouldn't be wrong by
yeah, you wouldn't be wrong no matter what. Like, it's just yeah, Evil entered the New Japan Cup. He beat Kojima, Goto, Yoshihashi, and Sanada, and then he ended up beating Kazuchika. I'll never get his name right. Okada is what I'm trying to say. He beat Okada in the tournament finals, and then went on, and then what was that, last night he took on Naito in the world championship match. He's also joined the Bullet Club. That's newsworthy. And yeah, now he is a double champion. So good for Evil. Congratulations. Congratulations, Evil. Mr. Evil. Evil reigns supreme.
He's not a Dr. Evil though, so he's not like Rob.
That's a good point. All right, and let's see here. So yeah, let's jump into Eddie Kingston. I mean, I don't know if this is like considered one of our feud episodes, or like how we're really rolling with this thing, except we just knew we wanted to roll into like talking about this Aldis and Kingston feud. And so if you haven't already, you can roll back to, I keep saying roll, I don't know why, but if you want to, you can go back to our Cody and Aldis feud episode. And those two guys, we went, as in depth as we needed to cover the career trajectories, like the parallels between those two guys and what they had done in the wrestling business leading up to their epic rivalry they've had, where they've had 2 matches already. Now, the trick with Eddie Kingston is that he and Aldis have never crossed paths. Even in Impact Wrestling, where Eddie Kingston was a mainstay for a little bit, Nick Aldis was gone already by the time Eddie Kingston came in. And so they never actually interacted with each other. Although he's interacted with plenty of other superstars, including current members of the NWA. So Eddie Kingston, not at all a career like Nick Aldis, but a solid, like wild, just he's one of those guys who's been everywhere and busted his ass in the business. But I'm sure you guys have done your own research here, so I'll just go kind of over an outline of like where we see him in the career, because I think the main stuff that we even want to get to, if it sounds like I'm even breezing through things, it's just because we're excited about Kingston versus Aldis, and we definitely want to talk about that. But we do want to give a little background on Eddie Kingston. And the best place to start there that I could really find is that he initially trained alongside his who would be his partner, Blackjack Marciano, under Kevin Knight at the Independent Wrestling Federation in Woodland Park, New Jersey. That's where Eddie Kingston got his first start. Now, Eddie Kingston was a pro wrestling fan his whole life. Like, he grew up loving wrestling. He talks about that he was big into, he got, I think in one interview I heard him talking about that he got really into NWA like on Sunday nights in the winter, because his dad liked watching other sports during the summer. So during the winter, he would get to watch NWA on TV. But you get the impression from this guy, he's huge into old school wrestling, and he's huge into All Japan. These are like his two favorites. And the reason for that, I don't think I've ever heard him explicitly say it, but it's just that this is a guy who treats wrestling as needing to be real at all times. Like, that's the important part to him. And so these are the areas where it's always felt the most real. He talks about his like the people that he like aspired to be like, or his favorite wrestlers being guys like Ricky Morton. That's a big one. And Kenta Kobashi, Kawada, Tommy Dreamer, Bret Hart, Ricky Steamboat, and like with promo wise, like he talks about obviously Dusty Rhodes and those kind of guys, but he also mentions Macho Man Randy Savage as a huge influence. Like I was looking it up, like his discussions about Macho Man during the feud with Hulk Hogan, just talking about the lust in Hulk Hogan's eyes. I went back and like watched those promos, and it actually, like, I'd forgotten, it's been forever since I watched that, but there's a scene where like Elizabeth's like out on the gurney, and like Macho is like in Hogan's face and like yelling at him about like, you said she'd never be in trouble. Like, you were going to look out for her. I let you bring her out to the ring, and now you screwed this up and you screwed me over and blah, blah, blah. And you're saying you're my brother. Well, I hate you. And like, and I see lust in your eyes from my woman and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And it's actually pretty intense. You can definitely see it there. And Kingston will talk about a lot that those are the kind of promos he throws on for people all the time. Like, look at this guy, look at this thing. And, but what I always love too, that he talks about with Ricky Morton, I just remember hearing him discuss, like, he would show like guys, Ricky Morton, just talking about one thing in the ring is like about what you can do is one thing, but take a look at a guy like Ricky Morton who had people dying for him, like losing their minds over him. And like when he's in the ring, it's like, it was less about like what he was managing to do in the ring, but it was like how he was selling and why he was doing it. And those are always the important parts to pay attention to. He wants you to invest every time he's in a match. He lost a little interest in wrestling. I even appreciated this as a huge, as I've shown you multiple times on the show. Bret Hart's right over here next to me. He was super into wrestling up until 96, WrestleMania 12, where Bret Hart lost to Shawn Michaels. And he was entering a certain stage in his life, he does say, but he lost interest in pro wrestling altogether because he knew Bret Hart was legit and Bret Hart was the shooter. And how could Shawn Michaels beat him? And then it was just like, at that point, it was like, this is BS. Like, why am I watching this? And it wasn't until like a little while down the road where he was like hanging out with one of his buddies, and his buddy was like, you like wrestling? And he's like, nah, man, I don't screw with wrestling anymore. And he's like, but you got to see this. And he showed him Gangsta's Paradise from ECW. And on that show, he got introduced to people like New Jack and Tommy Dreamer. And he thought that Dreamer had that like selling ability that he was talking about with like a Morton, and then guys like Raven, just the promos that they would cut, and Shane Douglas, that those guys like brought him back into wrestling. He still, it may sound cliche to some people, but still to this day, he says he throws on like the Steve Austin promo from the ECW days, where he talks about how he's going to be the star that he always was supposed to be, that nobody was going to let him, so he's just going to do it. And so you could definitely see like all of these things as an influence, because the Eddie Kingston we know and love, promos and believability are, I would say, like the biggest things we get out of him.
Yeah. And that's not something that like developed over the years. I remember I actually just tweeted out a couple minutes ago some pictures from 2003, very very early in Eddie Kingston's career, when he had just left Kevin Knight in the IWF and had started in Chikara Pro as the wild cards with Blackjack Marciano. And even then, man, he was already cutting those kind of promos. And you know, we've seen interviews where he talks about how he's just like he always has been. He's just like that 17-year-old kid, just more so now today, you know. So, you know, this isn't an act, man. It's not a skill that like was honed in school. What it might have been, I don't know. He might have gotten more polished, but the Eddie Kingston that we see now is the one that I've always known since the early days.
Yeah, and a lot of this makes sense too, Gary, from you know, just this background, because I actually didn't research a ton about his background once we decided we were going to talk about. I went down the rabbit hole of like his matches and his promos over time, like YouTube. I just YouTube Eddie Kingston, and I was just like click. I mean, because it's all compelling, man. I didn't come across a video of a promo or a match or a feud recap or something like that I was like, oh, skip. Like, it was just all compelling. And it all goes back to what you're talking about, Gary, the fact that his interest in wrestling and his motivation was the realness of it. And I've never seen multiple versions of Eddie Kingston, which you can't really say that about a lot of guys in the business. I've never seen a quote unquote shoot interview. They're all shoot interviews. You know what I mean? Like, he's himself every time he gets on the mic. Like, you don't see a character versus reality with him. And I think it's because of what you're saying. I mean, to him, wrestling is supposed to be real. It is. And I think we appreciate that. That's why we're NWA fans, because it's the closest thing in modern day to that type of feel and that realness, that authenticity. And that's what drew him in. And when he became a pro wrestler himself, obviously that was going to be his motivation. And so that's a really good foundation for probably everything we're going to talk about from here forward. But I mean, Eddie Kingston, he's Eddie Kingston, man. You're not going to find different versions. You're not going to find on YouTube him speaking one way in one promo and another way in another. Like, what you see is what you get, man. And I appreciate that as a wrestling fan.
You know what the crazier thing too about him is that I've grown to love is, like, Rob mentioned the 17-year-old thing, and Eddie Kingston always said like who he is in wrestling is like 17-year-old him, but like amped up. And that's always the thing you hear about wrestling, like, be yourself and like amp it up. Although he talks about now, as he's gotten older, like he's evolved it a little bit into the Eddie Kingston outside the ring doesn't hold grudges, and the Eddie Kingston doesn't waste time thinking about people that don't think about him, is what he's saying. And so, like, it's really interesting to hear him talk about a lot of different things. So, like, the first thing it comes to mind, for instance, as I mentioned, he trained at Independent Wrestling Federation in Woodland Park, New Jersey. He was kicked out of this school. The trainer there, Kevin Knight, who, if you hear Eddie Kingston talk about this guy right now, and I won't hold back from just mentioning, he says this guy's a prick. And like, he hates him. Like, he says he won't even say that about many people in the business, but he's a joke. Now, but then at the same time, he'll say, but if you want to learn the basics, like, it's a pretty good school to go to learn the basics of wrestling, but then you got to move on. It's like what he keeps saying. And so he's like, that guy like used him and abused him after a while, but then he was just kind of like, whatever, we got kicked out. He moved on. He ended up going to Chikara, to the Wrestle Factory there, and training under Chris Hero and Mike Quackenbush. Now, you've seen Chris Hero in NXT, and like, he had like a little bit of a stint there. And Quackenbush, obviously he's been in the news a little bit. We won't hit on all of that stuff, but Chikara now, just recently, because of everything that's been going on in the wrestling world, has closed down just recently. But he did a lot of his training there and learned from those guys. In fact, he made his debut as Eddie Kingston in 2002 at Chikara's 7th event, where him and Blackjack Marciano, they were known, their team was known, ironically enough, as the Wild Cards. And so they made their debut there. And by 2004, they were the tag team champions. They had a lot of success. And here's the thing with Eddie Kingston. Here's the tough part with him is that this guy was in Chikara, but as an independent wrestler, something he prided himself on. And he, even in interviews, like he'll credit a lot of what he was able to accomplish. Like he said some good stuff about people like Colt Cabana and then the Young Bucks, just about the making your way as an independent wrestler and making that be a legitimate career. But while he was in Chikara, he also, by like 2005 through 2007, it's hard to like tell you everything this guy was doing because he was everywhere. Like he was all over the place. And like he was in feuds with people like Sabian, Chris Hero, Claudio Castagnoli, which is Cesaro now. I think he did Sami Callihan, Ian Rotten. Like he had just like all sorts of different feuds going on at all sorts of different places. So he was in Chikara. He was also in CZW. He ended up becoming the first Chikara Grand Champion, I think in 2011. And I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around because I'm trying to get my timeline right here. I was like trying to write it down as I went. And, but he also ended up somewhere in there, like around, 2012, he had bounced into Ring of Honor too. So now he's in like 3 major independent promotions, like in, so Chikara, CZW, and Ring of Honor. And he wasn't like a small bit player in any of these places. He was rocking tag team titles, or he was in major feuds. And it's easy to see why. I mean, the guy is, like we've talked about 100 times, his promos are like nobody else's, and he's good in the ring. And so by the time he had busted into Ring of Honor, he had made his team up with Homicide. And so Outlaw Inc. was actually born in that time period, who you've seen in the NWA right now. And they made their debut in Ring of Honor going right after the tag team champions, which were Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly at the time. And so just he's been in the ring with the who's who of people. In fact, in Ring of Honor right there, he ended up getting into a huge feud with Kevin Steen, aka Kevin Owens, and even challenged Kevin Owens for the Ring of Honor World's Heavyweight Championship as well. So Eddie Kingston, just the everyman, all over the place, just fighting, just constantly fighting. That's what he does. He's good.
Right. And there's a lot of stuff there that you just went over, and obviously he's got so much mileage in his career in those days that we can't cover everything in detail. I did want to point out a couple of things. He's from New York. Chikara Pro is based out of Allentown, Pennsylvania, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia, in that area. So this is he's driving back and forth on a weekly basis to do this. And in between, there's also, this is at the height of like ECW and the emergence of Extreme Championship Wrestling and that whole movement. So he's also doing things like 3PW. That was a small promotion out of Philadelphia that Jasmine St. Clair was running. And you would have guys like Balls Mahoney and Homicide that would do that same show. And he would pop up from time to time. He was on this, one of my favorite, I have this cassette. I pulled it off. My son and I were actually at the show. This is May the 24th, 2003, where he and Blackjack Marciano wrestled in a match that involved Mike Quackenbush, Grant Akuma, who is really one of the best, and then Hallow Wicked. Something about Eddie Kingston is like, even those, you don't really, as intense a guy that Eddie Kingston is, he doesn't really bury a lot of people. There are a few, like he doesn't have a lot of positive things to say about like Kevin Knight, and he has some strong words for Chris Hero and some different folks, but even then he'll give them props. He'll be like, if you want to learn basics, the IWF school is a good place to learn basics. I'm not going to say that we clicked in all this, and he has got some very harsh things to say about him, but like Mike Quackenbush, he'll go on and say, Mike Quackenbush can have a temper. but I understood that, and Mike Quackenbush gave me a chance when nobody else would. And I'm a very loyal person. That's one thing that always comes across with Kingston. He's very loyal. But he's doing all this stuff, man. I mean, he's having epic feuds. One of the great feuds he ever had. I don't even know. I didn't do a YouTube search or anything, but he had a feud with a guy named Hallow Wicked that was a big in Chikara Pro, and you guys might even know who that is. Chikara is just a different style of promotion. Even like the shows that they would package like these came across like a combination of Mystery Science Theater and like pop-up video, where they've got the matches and then they have all these little animations that pop. It's really interesting but different. And but Eddie Kingston is emerging here as a guy that's like trying to find his style, and I don't even know that it's right to say he has a style, because he really is quite intelligent and is informed by so many things from old school NWA to the strong style in Japan. All Japan was what really influenced him. And then, of course, Extreme Championship Wrestling was what brought him back into wrestling after the whole Montreal Screwjob thing. So he's got all these competing influences. And Eddie Kingston is a bigger guy now. But in 2003, he's not a big guy. He's not much bigger than I am. He's just a real tenacious guy and just a hard worker. And he's building up this repertoire and this resume of just doing his time, pulling his duty, building respect, treating the business appropriately, and becoming one of the most respected journeymen in the game, and then he emerges in Ring of Honor and really starts to place himself on the map. So anyway, I did want to also say that the Chikara Grand Championship that he held, he was the first champion the first man to hold that particular title. And he held it for 924 days, the longest reigning Chikara Grand Champion. Now, that's not a world's championship, but it's a championship of some consideration when you think of like Mike Quackenbush and Hallow Wicked and other guys that have done that, Grant Akuma and some other guys that are highly respected. And just to put that in perspective, we're now on day 631 of Nick Aldis's reign. If you count the 266 days of his first reign, Nick Aldis is now at day 897, 3 days away from 900. So Eddie Kingston, in one reign in Chikara as the Chikara Grand Champion, held the belt for 924 days in a very, very active promotion where he's working against top-notch components day in, day out, traveling all throughout the Northeast doing it. So that is a great testament to his ability.
Absolutely. And if you look at, you just mentioned it, but who he was feuding with during that time, who else would essentially be in the running for that title. Yes, you're right. It's not a world's title in that sense, but he was representing an entire promotion, an entire brand. And he did that for over 900 days. Like, that's in and of itself, that's an accomplishment, no matter how you cut it. We talk about it all the time, and pro wrestling is the greatest thing on earth. And there's tons of promotions, and we don't, we're obviously NWA fans primarily, but we don't bury other promotions, and we don't sit and judge different levels and have an elitist mentality. We think there's enough pro wrestling to go around for everybody. And so the fact remains that he sat atop of a promotion that was very active, as you said. I think they did take some time off during his reign, took a little hiatus and came back. But hey, we're doing that right now. So, that's nothing new. And that's what happens when you're an independent promotion. But the fact, again, remains that he was on top of that promotion. He was the face of it as their champion for that long. That's commendable. That's real,
Yeah, 100%. And Rob, you made an interesting point too. I wanted to hit on a little bit. You talked about how there was like very few people that he would bury. But even then, he would still, like, as far as like Kevin Knight and his training, he would still, that's one path I wanted to go down just a little bit, is like, well, if you want to learn the basics, though, you can go to this place. And it's like, he seems to have this, like, it's part of what makes him authentic, I think, or like you even believe him more, because he's very just honest, like just overly honest, like not like even in the sense that like he tells you why he could see both sides of what's going on. He's like, yeah, I hate this guy, but I can also see why he hates me, like that sort of thing. He's always like that. And I think that makes you kind of appreciate that. You're like, I think he's probably telling the truth about everything here because he doesn't seem to care either way. And I mean, even in a sense, like in an interview with, we talked about it a little bit before we went live with Chris Van Vliet. He talked about it. It's like, it's kind of sad we don't see you in like AEW or WWE. And he's like, it just doesn't make sense. And he's like, nah, it makes sense. He was like, if they had something for me, they would call me up and use me. And obviously they don't see anything they can use me for. So there it is. Like, he's just kind of like that. That's on me. Like I got, they're just, they don't have something for me. And it's just, I don't feel like you see many people that just have that like mentality about it, that he's like taking responsibility for what he's doing in every single thing that he does. And it's just, I don't know. I really like that side of him. Also worth mentioning too, if you can look it up. 2011, he has a match with Mike Quackenbush for that championship that Rob just talked about a lot there, and it's an amazing match. It's considered by a lot to be Kingston's best match, I think, or a lot of. He won't tell you his favorite match because he just isn't that way, I guess. But he does describe that as the match most people ask him about or talk to him about, that say they love. So he gives that. And yeah, like you guys were talking about, there's just so much stuff to go over. Like, I mean, the guy was just like bouncing all over the place. And but somewhere in there, he also ended up in Jersey All Pro Wrestling. He did a stint there. This was like in the 2010 period. He was running up against he and Homicide were actually together there during that period, and they were competing against guys like you might know, like Dan Moff, who is in Ring of Honor right now, who was just at the Hard Times pay-per-view for NWA. And then the biggest time, probably the thing that most people know Kingston for prior to NWA, is he went to Impact Wrestling. So he was in TNA, and he joined Impact Wrestling by becoming of a faction that was like really mysterious and covered up, and like they were on masks. They wore masks and their voices were changed and stuff, and then they ended up busting in to attack a group called the Tribunal. And they got into a feud with them and like the Broken Hardys and that sort of thing. But his crew was called the Death Crew Council. And that crew consisted of Eddie Kingston, Thomas Latimer, and who am I missing there? And James Storm. I don't know why I almost forgot. But so Eddie Kingston, James Storm, and Thomas Latimer. So people you all know right now from NWA. And so it was kind of cool to see that. I was actually not familiar. I was never like a huge Impact guy, but they ran as a crew for a little while. Like I said, feuding with the Hardys. They ended up getting into some trouble with Eli Drake during that time. So like there was a whole feud thing that they had going on there. And basically, again, just like a who's who kind of thing. Eddie Kingston was in and out of title pictures throughout Impact. He ended up the hard part with the Impact stuff for me is that it seems like he gets into something. They ended up having a feud, like Brand, Thomas Latimer, and him like broke apart from James Storm. So there was a feud with James Storm, but then it was just kind of like they disappeared. And it just like they just stopped using Eddie Kingston. I think he hits on it a little bit in that Van Vliet interview that they were just paying per appearance at that time. So they just would just pay you to show up, and you didn't have like a guaranteed contract or anything. So he felt like during that time that it was not the best point in his career, but it was exposure, but they didn't have any ideas for him. And he talks specifically now about not being interested in a place with no plans or ideas for him. Going back to that point I made about AEW and WWE, he's like, I don't even want to go to a place unless they know exactly how they would use me or they know what they need me to do. Because otherwise, what's the point? I did that already. And so he describes his time in Impact that exact same way, that they just like, he accepted it because he didn't get paid if he wasn't on the show. And so, but they never really knew what they were doing. They were just throwing him in all these different feuds and these different angles, just wherever they could find an empty spot for him. So that was around 2017 in October. He did return in May of 2018, coming back to help out the Latin American Exchange, LAX, when Conan was taken out as the leader of the group. This led into that whole period of time when there was Homicide and Hernandez. So he obviously had some connections with Homicide. So he was managing the group for a little bit. Homicide ended up getting eliminated, and King kind of assumed the leadership role in LAX and took the new guys, Ortiz and Santana, who you may know from AEW now, and led them to the Impact World Championship and or Tag Team Championship. Sorry. When Conan and was it Diamante returned, they got into kind of a kerfluffle with Kingston about his running of LAX, and they ended up getting into the Homicide and Hernandez faction of LAX became the OGs, and then there was the LAX that was led by Kingston, which was the Ortiz and Santana version. They ended up getting into a concrete jungle death match in Impact, and the OGs lost that match. And maybe I mixed that up. I'm sorry if I said that wrong, Will. I don't know. Maybe you know this a little bit better than me. But
no, I actually didn't follow Impact that much either. I kind of was aware of people around that time who were in Impact, so but I wasn't following storylines or anything like that, so I don't have any further insight on that. Maybe people in the chat do that were actually Impact fans around that time that could give us some insight into how that went down.
Yeah. Either case, like after that matchup, that was really the last time anybody saw Eddie Kingston in TNA. He just kind of, after a few weeks, was moved to their alumni section, and he just kind of faded out again. And that's not a knock on Kingston. That just seems like management issues or something going on there. But it was during that time, though, I will say that, like, I read a lot about, there were interactions with people like Billy Corgan during that period. So you can see where that relationship might have developed. Obviously, the stuff with Eli Drake and Latimer and James Storm and all that stuff. So he's got connections all throughout with a lot of the NWA roster. Pretty much after that period, like, Kingston just was independent wrestling, but he announced in 2019, basically, that I don't know exactly. If you hear him describe it, he describes it a lot as like he was just kind of, he had bought a house, he's like hanging out in his house, he's drinking a lot, and he's just there, and he's just wrestling. He becomes disillusioned with wrestling altogether, and he decides that he is going to retire from professional wrestling. I actually had a video here that I thought really explained this really, really well. So I was going to see if I could pull it up here, if you could bear with me 1 second. Because if I can make the thing work that we talked about, this would be the best thing, because I thought it was a really cool story. Let's see. We're going to try this. Do you hear something in the background? Is that Rob doing Rob stuff?
I don't know. I don't know what Rob's doing.
All right. Hold on. I got this. Let's see. And share computer stuff.
I've been through a lot in wrestling, which is fine. You know, everyone goes through a lot. Like, I'm not special. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people have had it worse than me, just in life and in wrestling. But, you know, I'm an emotional creature. You know what I mean? I wear my heart on my sleeve and stuff. And so one day I had a couple of drinks. I'm a little bit of a drinker. I slowed down. But had a couple of drinks, man, and I saw something on TV. I'm not going to say what company. And it just ripped at my chest, like my soul. Like I was hurting because what I saw was just wasn't right. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to get into the details because I don't want to bury nobody, you know what I'm saying? But people know who they are and what's going on, you know what I'm saying? I'm not perfect either, I'm not saying I am, but just that situation, and like I started getting drunker and drunker watching this thing go down, and you know, I'm a glutton for punishment, so I went on YouTube and then watched that same thing I didn't like over and over, and I just let it eat at me, and I'm drinking more and more whiskey, and I'm eating at me. So then I just flipped out, and I'm a homeowner now, so like, if anything happens in the house, it's on me. You know what I'm saying? So I just flipped out and I took the bottle of Jameson, empty bottle, broke it against the wall, and I started putting holes in my wall, and I was screaming and yelling, you know, just drunk madness, you know? And then in my head, it was like, I'm gonna tweet at this person, and I'm gonna text this person, and then I'm gonna call this person, you know what I mean? I'm gonna blow this up, and I became real vindictive, you know what I mean? And thank God I went to bed. And I went to bed, I woke up the next morning, my hands were all bloody from hitting the wall and stuff. And I woke up and I saw the broken glass and I saw the holes in the wall, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. You know what I mean? I can't let this eat at me anymore. That's when I tweeted it out. It's like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. So it's like, well, at the end of the year, if something crazy doesn't happen, I'm done. And when I said something crazy, everyone knows what that meant. Like getting a contract somewhere, making good money. And I didn't want to say contract because it felt like I was begging, you know? So I put that out there, and I was dead set on it, you know? I have someone living with me in my house, and I told them, hey man, by December start looking for a new place, you know, because I looked up places in Oregon to live, Alaska, I looked up a couple places, because I've always done construction. When I wasn't wrestling, I was doing construction, so. I was like, oh, I'll just get my welder's license again. I'll go back to ironworking in New York, save enough money, and then just move to the middle of nowhere. Like I was actually on Google. I was gonna get rid of my phone, had this all planned out already. My mother and father were gonna have my number and my brother, and then that's it. So, you know, and my family's like, hey, whatever you wanna do as long as you're safe, and, you know, they'll support me, you know? So then my brother had his kid. Again, with wrestling, you're busy, so I didn't get a chance to meet the kid yet, my nephew. So my nephew was about 7 months old, and I remember my brother goes, hey, meet your nephew. So I meet him, and I'm looking at him in his eyes, and I'm just like, oh my God, he's one of us. You know, he's my real last name's Moore. So to me, I looked at him, I was like, oh my God, this is a baby boy, this is a Moore. Like I can see it in his eyes, it's a Moore. And I got choked up. Like I said, I'm an emotional person. I got choked up, and I was like, Mom, take the kid. You know what I mean? Get him away from me. Then my brother goes to me, he goes, hey man, I need you to help me, you know, I need you to help me raise my son to be, you know, show him how to be a man a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, of course, you know, it's my nephew, of course. He goes, so, but then he goes, check this out, this is how he got me. He goes, awesome, man, like, I can tell my son, your nephew, that if you work hard and you never quit, you can get whatever you want. I said, yeah, you can definitely tell him that. He goes, well, how can I tell him that when his uncle quit? I said, wow. He said, all right, man, enjoy that 6-hour car drive home from Buffalo back to Yonkers, New York. You know what I mean? Before I go back to Florida. And just, you know, it weighed on me, and I didn't know what to do. And then it was like network special. And then a bunch of other things started happening. Then my brother told me what he told me. So things started like lining up. And then I just announced it on an interview on High Spots with Ethan Page. And I was just like, look, man, I'm here now. That's it. No more retirement talk. I'm just gonna keep going till the wheels fall off, until people stop booking me. You know what I mean? And the little bit of an ego that I do have, I don't think anyone's better than me. I felt like that for 17 years, and maybe I wasn't right for all 17, but shit, I feel like I'm right for at least the last 4. You know, like I said, it'd be 18 in October. I feel like last 5 years, no one can touch me, you know? Like, I don't do a lot of crazy things, but I tell great stories. You know what I mean? And I fight. I'm not like, I put so much pressure on myself to get that contract But now knowing that, okay, I'm here, and I'm here to the end, you know what I mean? There's no more pressure, you know? So I come to Evolve, I come to Progress, I come AIW, AAW, whatever, all these other places I work, WXW, like it doesn't, I'm just having fun now, you know what I mean? There's no more pressure. Is there still a want for something? Yeah, of course. Like, I want to kind of feel like the 17 years wasn't a waste. You know what I mean? Like, and I know I can whatever, we'll speak frankly about it. I know I can go on NXT and do something. You know, I know I can. I know I can go to AEW and do something. I know I can go NWA, I can go whatever other Impact. I already proved it with Impact when they brought me back. I know I can, and everyone's like, oh, you're a great promo. Yeah, that's fine, that's cool. Like, I can also do it in the ring. And I've been doing it in the ring and I've been showing it. And places like Evolve have let me do it. And over the years, all the promotions I ever worked for let me do it, you know? So that's the confidence I have in myself, you know? I may not have the best body, you know, which is, it's a hard thing. I like to eat. You know what I mean? I'll lift weights all day and then I'll have a burrito later, right after, you know? But I know I can do it. You know what I mean? All I need is an opportunity. Inside, I know for a fact, you give me an opportunity, I'm gonna deliver. And if I don't deliver, then fire me. But at least I know I got a real hard chance. You know what I mean? And that's it. But that's just the way I look at it. So I'm here till the wheels fall off, folks. You know. So those who don't like me, too bad. You're gonna have to see me do. People who do like me, you know, I'm around for you. You know, that's it, man. And it's all because of my nephew Evan and my brother Eric. So thank them or yell at them. That's it.
So anyway, I wasn't gonna show that whole thing, but then like everything else that Eddie Kingston does, like as I was like listening to it, I just kind of forgot what we were doing again. And so like I was just like, I guess we're just watching this now the whole way through. So hope everybody at home enjoys that.
No, that was great, man. And I don't know, it was a little bit choppy, so sorry for everyone watching if the video was choppy, but the audio came through good. And man, like that's what I love about Eddie, man. He's real. He doesn't hold back. That authenticity. He said something, and I did watch the High Spots interview that he talked about where he tells that story about his nephew, and it's pretty emotional, man. You can tell he's really invested. It's not a storyline. It's his real life, and that's what's motivating him. And he's very focused on family, on personal values and principle and things like that, which makes for a compelling story. We talk about it all the time with authenticity. But one thing he talks about a lot, and he mentioned it in that interview too, is his ability to tell stories. And I think that's what he, whether he's on the mic or in the ring, he's focused on telling a good story. And that's one of the things that has gotten a little lazy in mainstream professional wrestling in the last decade or so, where it's, now the stories are told by writers in a conference room, or something like that. Whereas one of the reasons why I think he's been, able to stay in different promotions and things like that, even not under contract, making appearances, is because they know that he's going to show up and he's going to tell a good story, even if it's just for one night, because that's what he does. And that's what wrestling is built on for him. And so that's one of the reasons I'm super stoked that he's in the NWA, because I think he fits that mold perfectly. A guy who wants to tell stories, wants everything to make sense. And he's right, man. He does it in the ring as well as he does on the mic. I mean, we tend to put him over way more as a promo, because, man, his promos are just unheard of killer. Like it's like a breath of fresh air for us wrestling fans. But he tells the same kind of story in the ring, and he's consistent with it. And so I'm stoked to have him around, obviously in the NWA, but glad he didn't retire. I'm glad his nephew and his brother were able to inspire him to stay the course. And now we're getting to enjoy what we're getting to enjoy with Eddie Kingston in the National Wrestling Alliance.
Yeah. And
yeah, absolutely.
Gosh, and that sets up to me like one of potentially the greatest stories that we will have seen or will get to participate in a long, long time. I mean, don't get me wrong. Cody Rhodes and Nick Aldis is a great story. Marty Scurll and Nick Aldis is a great story. But what about Nick Aldis and Eddie Kingston? That simple tweet that Eddie Kingston sent out last week that Nick Aldis responded to, and that others like Ricky Morton have chimed in on, has really sent reverberations around the wrestling world.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I look forward to, like if you're talking Eddie Kingston and Nick Aldis, is God, there's so many things that still I wanted to hit on. Like just hearing that story, like you can feel the passion in what Kingston's talking about when he's telling that story. One of the things he said in one interview I heard, wherever it was, is, in that period where he was getting ready to retire, he made this great quote, and maybe this is from somewhere else, but I wasn't aware of it. But he said, to him, love is the highest form of understanding. And he got into a point where he didn't understand what wrestling was doing anymore. And he was falling out of love with it. And it's crazy to hear him talk about, like, a guy like that, who especially talks like that, was just going to go like put himself out in the middle of nowhere somewhere. He talked about like Alaska or something, like just getting a cabin out in the middle of the woods and like talking to just his parents and his brother. And that was going to be it. Nobody else would even get his number. But that conversation with his brother that brought him back about, he says he wrestles for his niece and nephew now. Like he's doing it for them to show that, like, he wants them to be able to say, like, my uncle's a pro wrestler. They're like, prove it. He's going to be somewhere doing it. And he says, like he said in that promo there, till the wheels fall off. He says he's in it now. Like he's found his passion and his love for the wrestling business again. And he's there until he cannot do it anymore. And even in one of the interviews, I think it was the Chris Van Vliet one again, he asked him, well, so what if you retired? Like, that's not, retiring is not quitting. And, whatever. And he's like, I haven't achieved everything I would have ever wanted to achieve yet. So I wasn't retiring. My body can still do this. I was quitting. He's like, in wrestling, if you can still go and you choose not to, you quit. And he's like, so this is not the same thing. And so he's like, now I will not quit, and I'll be there. I'm going to be there as long as I can do this thing. And he's even talked about that, like he said he wouldn't name names, but I know I've heard this even in the backstage stuff of the NWA, that he's even thought, like, once the body breaks down, what's next? Maybe an agent, maybe a manager, like all of this stuff. Like he's back in love with the wrestling business, and he's in it.
Because he was contemplating, hey, I want to go off to Alaska. I've been a welder. I want to go off to Montana out west and just be by myself. That was his plan. When he left the business, when he was thinking about retiring, he was just going to fade away. I've got this new phone number. I'm going to give it to my family. No one's ever going to hear from Eddie Kingston again. I left football in high school and never went back. I did this, and it was my income and my job for many years, and I'm never going to look back. I'm always going to look forward. But, man, and we're all family men, and most of us that are listening in tonight are family men, and you cannot help but, gosh, man, how good. And it's not because he's like trying to do it. It's not like this is like he sets out to like pull your emotional heartstrings or to pull upon your psyche and all that. He just does it because he's so genuine. And like everybody else in the NWA, he just does it so much better than most. But he tells a story about, why he decided to stay. And he's like, yeah, it had to do with my brother having his son, Evan is his son's name. And I'm sitting here now, I'm an uncle, and he's like, I'm holding, because I've been there. Will's been there, and I can picture myself in this situation, just like having this, handing my son or my daughter off to my brother, and my brother looking and saying, wow, you did this. Yeah, he's one of us. Yeah. And so now, Eddie Kingston's like, I do this for Evan, and I think he's had a niece now. He's got a nephew and a niece that he holds very close because he's very close to his brother, and he does this for him. But and he says I want my niece and nephew to be able to go off to school and say, man, my uncle's this freaking awesome dude. He's a pro wrestler. No, he's not. Yeah, he is. Here he is, and know that I just can't help but think, like, when I talk to, for those of you who, and I don't want to get into a lot of personal stuff, but just like, I can't help but think of like someone who's just like dying to be a dad themselves. You know what I mean? Eddie Kingston is like eternally single. He dates, and he's a good looking guy. You know, and he's cool. He's dated around and all that, but he's a single guy, and he'll talk about that. But it seems to me like this is a guy just cherishes like being a role model, even though he will go out on Twitter and say things like, I'm not a good guy, or he's got a hard exterior, and it's a very truthful exterior. He was raised on hard streets, and he had a family, but everything that you're seeing that he packages, none of that's an invention. I mean, he knows what it's like to steal cable. He knows what it's like to go without food. He knows what it's like to see violence around him. He was a violent person, he says. He's been in jail a couple times. He's dabbled in this and that. He's been to rehab. He's done the whole thing. He will tell you right now that he's not happy with any piece of work he's ever done. No match. He's like, what's your favorite match? I don't have one. None of my matches live up to this. He's confident in his ability. He knows he'll give it he'll leave everything on the mat, but he'll look back and it's like, the fans might say that this match, my work with Quack or my work with so-and-so is good. But me, I'm not pleased with anything. He's so humble, he's so humble, and yet he's so smash mouth. I don't know. He's just, nobody else does it like that.
He talks about a lot that like, no matter what he does, like his goal when he steps into the ring, the end of the day is it says, and I quote, like, you will feel me like every time I'm out there. And that's it, man. And the thing about it that I think about that gets me really excited, I think it's, we talked all day, I mean, multiple times about seeing Nick Aldis versus Eddie Kingston, but the exciting part to me, even more so now, even more than just the promos that the guys are going to put on, those two with their promos against each other, coming at each other from different angles are going to be fire. But also, has Nick Aldis ever faced anybody like Eddie Kingston before? Because I don't know that he has. Like, Eddie Kingston is coming at this thing from a different place than most of these opponents that Nick Aldis has had. Like, he's not a Marty Scurll, he's not a Tim Storm. Like, Eddie Kingston is rough and tumble, ready to go. And he talks about it in the ring. I mean, another example of what we talked about earlier, where he's like, he's got things he likes and things he doesn't, but he also will give props where it's deserved. He talks about like places like AEW and the flippy stuff and all of that. He's like, not for me, man. And he's like, it's just not for me. Like, I can't do it. That's not a thing I do. So I respect it. I appreciate it. Good for you. But I promise you, if I punch you in the face, you are not going to flip anywhere. And he talks about that exact thing. He's like, when I'm in the ring, he's like, I want it to be a real fight. It's always going to be a real fight. And he's like, in every match I have, there's something real about it. He's like, and the thing I'm thinking of, like, he gave the example. He's like, if I'm in a match where a dude's just talking a lot of shit, one of the first things I'm going to do is try to bite his damn tongue out. And I'm like, man. And I'm like, well, that's what's going to happen with Nick Aldis. Like, I mean, is Nick Aldis ready for the dude who's going to try to bite his tongue out? Like, it's going to be like that. I mean, Eddie Kingston's going to come for him and going to he's going to hit him hard, and it's going to be a brawl. It's not going to be an elegant, like, what is it? Like a World of Sports style, like, arm drags and takeovers and stuff like that, like you had with Marty Scurll at Crockett Cup. This is going to be like punching each other in the face and taking it outside, and it's going to be a fight. And I'm excited because I don't know if we've seen Nick Aldis have to really go at it with somebody like that yet.
Right.
I mean,
maybe
far,
not on the. Go ahead, Will.
So far, I mean, that's the thing that's intrigued me is that watching on the Inside the NWA, where he talked about it, and there was a promo that he did recently. I won't quote it because the language is not permissible on a show like this, where we're not totally family friendly, but it's pretty extreme. But since he's called out Nick Aldis, the motivation here, it's interesting because it's similar to stuff we've seen, but it's at the same time vastly different. Because when you hear Eddie Kingston talk about fighting Nick Aldis, yes, he puts over the world's title and says that in his opinion, that's the biggest title in professional wrestling right now, and Nick Aldis has it. But he talks about it just in terms of a fight. You know, a lot of times you hear guys and they will focus on that title. And we love that. We put that over on this show a lot. The fact that titles should be prestigious and it should mean something. He makes it mean something while at the same time making it clear that he just wants to fight the dude that's the best fighter in the world, you know, and in his opinion, Nick Aldis holds that belt right now. So that means that the world thinks that he's the best fighter. Well, he wants to go prove him wrong because he thinks he's a better fighter. And he specifically says grappler, which I love because that's not a term you hear in a lot of promos. That he says, hey, Nick Aldis is a great grappler. I'm better. That's what he said. And stuff like that, to me, it just takes things to a whole nother level, because these other storylines, you talk about Cody and you talk about Skrull, you talk about James Storm, even when they had a feud, there was other elements in there that made it interesting, and those are all great. But you're right, we haven't seen a feud with Nick Aldis where it's literally just, here's this guy who thinks that, yes, you're the title that you hold is the best in the world, and because you have it, that means the world thinks that you're the best. But he just wants to fight you and beat you and get that title so that he's the best grappler, best fighter in the world. Like, that's when you want to talk about a prize fight mentality, that's it. There's no other storyline. There's no other like, oh, Nick Aldis, you piss me off because you carry yourself this way, or I just don't like your personality. It's literally just two guys fighting. And, you know, Nick Aldis, to this point, we may see as the storyline develops, but he hasn't fired back at Eddie about anything about not liking his personality or having any kind of styles clash or anything like that. It's literally just been, here's a prize fight. This guy wants the title because I've got it. Let's do this. Let's do business, as Aldis said. And to me, that just feels so real. You know what I mean? It's just so different than anything we've ever seen before.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that when they had the exchange on Twitter a few days ago, Eddie Kingston, tweets out, hey, I want this challenge. And Nick Aldis is like, I'm ready to do this. And then Eddie Kingston replies something to the effect that he says, our champion, I may be wrong here, but I think he said our champion is no coward. Is that what he said?
Something like that. Or doesn't back down from the challenge or something. Yeah.
The key words being our champion, so he acknowledges the authority and the weight and the position that Nick Aldis holds. And then he comes with is no coward, the respect. And there's obviously a great deal of mutual respect. You don't see a lot of trash talk going on. I think you're right that don't get me wrong here. Nick Aldis, it's not like he's never faced tough guys before. Nick Aldis is the greatest wrestler in the world today. He's the greatest champion of this era. And he's wrestled very elegant styles, and he's wrestled guys that are more trained in the strong style and guys that are in the high spots. And Nick Aldis can really do a lot of that too. Maybe, one of the reasons that Eddie Kingston rises to the top, though, is because he's so uniquely passionate and qualified. And, I think about like growing up, my favorite wrestler was Ric Flair. He's the one that inspired me. That's the one I felt. My son, growing up, his favorite wrestler was Hallowicked and Eddie Kingston, based off of the weight of those things, So it's like, and he parlayed that year after year after year until now he's on this world title scene potentially, if we can get all that stuff worked out and everything. But here's the thing. Nick Aldis is the most elegant wrestler out there. He's a student of the sport. He wrestles like he plays chess. He's thinking methodically. He's got his moves thought out. He's always thinking 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 moves ahead. And Eddie Kingston is not that kind of guy. And maybe that might benefit you if this were a street fight, but in a gentleman's contest where you do have rules and you have, the squared circle and you have parameters and you're fighting under gentleman's rules, I just don't see, I see this being a very compelling storyline. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't think anybody captures, Cody Rhodes is also a very elegant, skilled, informed, educated wrestler, just like Marty Scurll is. Guys like Trevor Murdoch and Eddie Kingston are a little rougher. Not that they don't have training and don't have good training, but they're much more emotionally driven and it's much more of the Dusty Rhodes style, where I'm building an emotional story and this and that. And this is going to be, if this happens, this will be something along those lines of a Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes type story. Not like, whereas a Cody Rhodes and a Marty Scurll is more of a Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat type thing, or Ric Flair Sting type thing, where you've got more scientific wrestlers and and that kind of thing. So this is going to be of a different sort, but I just feel like, one, nobody's better than Nick. And again, this is not just me just saying that. We all see the body of work that Aldis is putting out. It's he doesn't have a peer in the sport. Now, he won't tell you that, because even though he's brash and is confident as a champion should be, he's going to pay dues and give respect to these people as he should. And this is not to say that Eddie Kingston on a good day couldn't be the one that wins that title and holds it for a time. But I don't see Eddie Kingston like in the ring as Nick Aldis's peer. I don't see that. I think this is an epic battle, but at the end of the day, man, Eddie's just too emotional. He's not deliberate enough, and Nick Aldis is playing this game better than anybody alive right now. Anybody.
I feel like that's kind of going with what I'm saying, though. It's like Eddie Kingston's not going to be trying to be Nick Aldis's peer in wrestling ability. Eddie Kingston's going in there to whip that ass. That's
that might work on the street. That might work on the streets, but in the squared circle, where there's a referee and it's gentleman's rules, even if you're a gentleman from the hard streets of New York, this is a performance sport. This is a prize fight. And when you're dealing with a prize fight, now, if this is I'm not confident that in an MMA type style, combat type exchange that Aldis wouldn't win that either. I just think he's that good at his craft. But in the squared circle, in the sport of wrestling, Nick Aldis doesn't have a peer, and for that reason, Kingston can't win this match.
Yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, I get what you're saying, but let's also not forget that we've seen from promos and that sort of thing that Eddie Kingston is doing his judo training. Like he's got BJJ background. Like he's doing other stuff. So even though he comes across as just a streetwise brawler, there is a background that he's working with here too. Now, of course, I like I was saying earlier, I don't expect it to be a world of sport like arm drag takeover, hit toss, like here's a headlock, let's grab this and throw you over here and all of this. It's going to be like Eddie Kingston's like coming after him like a wild dog. But that's what makes the match tough for me to predict. Like, I think it's going to be a fight. And I think that Eddie Kingston makes everything unpredictable. Like anything he's involved in, it's just going to be, you're fighting for your life every time you're in the ring.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from Eddie Kingston. I think he is one of maybe the most compelling guy out there. And I think we all, including me, I'm going to pay big money to see this. If they have an audience, best believe Stinson's going to be there. I'm going to be there right there watching. And because on any given day, anybody can really beat anybody at this level. We're dealing with world-class athletes, and Eddie Kingston's one of them. It could be, if the cosmos were aligned, if there happened to be a bearded trio summit that day and there was just something off in the time-space continuum, Eddie Kingston could walk out and he would be, and he's worthy of it. Don't get me wrong. Eddie Kingston is worthy of this title. My only argument is that there's only Nick Aldis is just the best. Eddie Kingston has the unfortunate circumstance of living in the era of the greatest, which is Nick Aldis.
We got Stinson. We got Doc Stinson down to it could happen, which is, I think, a victory.
We're getting there, man. We're getting there.
So don't
I
feel like that's a victory.
And y'all always trying to put a slant on what I'm saying. Let me draw another analogy. The greatest fight game of all time is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, man. And if you play it and you get all the codes right, you could possibly beat Mike Tyson. But here's how it went, man. You go through and you're, what's his name? Little Mac. You going through and you take on Glass Joe, and then you get up to like King Hippo, and then you get to Soda Popkinski, and then you get to, Mr. Sandman, and you find the way. But then you get to Mike Tyson, and it's a different story. This is different. Nick Aldis is not Mike Quackenbush. Nick Aldis is not Hallowicked. Nick Aldis just happens to be the greatest at this sport right now today of anybody. He's the greatest current champion of anybody. And so, no, it is.
Eddie Kingston ain't pulled back, man. Eddie Kingston's like Super Macho Man. Like, so it's a different matchup.
I'm not throwing shade on Kingston. It could happen. He's
pisting Honda up in this bit.
Listen, I'm glad, first of all, that you didn't say that Nick Aldis is Mike Tyson. I'm glad you stopped. We all saw where that was going, but you stopped yourself. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. And, you know, I know it's not like me to disagree with the good doctor. Just kidding. We always disagree. But that's that's the beautiful that's the beautiful thing about this show. But listen, this is my perspective on it. Wrestling, the beauty of wrestling to me is all of the different types of characters. What I don't like is when and I'm not saying this is what you're saying at all, but this is just my perspective. I don't like when certain things get pigeonholed and backed into a corner with it's got to be a certain way, because like I personally don't love when a feud is two guys that are the same. Like you got a Brock Lesnar and another big beefy guy, Braun Strowman or something like that, and they're gonna fight. Some people are interested in that. I'm just like, okay, this is appealing to one type of person, the person that likes that kind of wrestling. What's beautiful to me about an Aldis Eddie Kingston feud is it is two completely different viewpoints, two completely different styles, two completely different stories. And you're exactly right. Emotional. Eddie Kingston's very emotional. He leads with emotion. But to me, and this is just my perspective as well, and this is not anything, this doesn't take away, I'll say everything you said, but in reverse. This is not taking anything away from the champ, Nick Aldis. But I prefer the emotional guys. I prefer the guys that can go out there and they can win because they've got some kind of emotion. They're not, that's not to say I don't appreciate the in-ring chess players. I do. I love Ric Flair. I love guys that you've mentioned that have that strategic mindset. I love that. But as much as I love that, I also love the guys that come in there and fight out of emotion because they got something to prove or something like that. And I've seen great champions over time that were that type of person. And so I think there's room for both. And my point is just that, you know, as much as Nick Aldis has established himself as the face of the National Wrestling Alliance in 2020, 2019, 2018, all the last like 3 years, basically.
Yeah, the last 900 days as a, basically.
There it is. I knew you'd have the exact number. I was waiting on you. But there at some point, I believe that any good storyteller would know this, there's got to be a fork in the road. And maybe it comes back, and I'm sure it will. I'm with you. I agree. If Nick Aldis loses the title, Eddie Kingston, whoever, it ain't his last title reign. He has built the clout. He has built the believability and the trust from the audience that he will be a multi-time champion. No doubt about it. When we're having this conversation in 20 years, we'll be talking about him the way we talk about Ric Flair now. I believe that. But I think there's got to be points in the road where it diverts so that when he comes back, it is meaningful. And I think Eddie Kingston is a prime candidate, in my opinion, because it is going to be a completely different look and feel. And it's gonna be uncomfortable for guys like you who see a champ, as you say a lot, as a statesman and as a certain, you know, Ric Flair, Nick Aldis, that kind of person, just as it was probably uncomfortable for people that had that mentality to see Dusty Rhodes as champion, even though he was more of a transitional champion. But I don't know. I mean, it's 2020. Things are different. You know, the world is at a heightened emotional state. I think that heightened emotional drive from Eddie Kingston really connects with people right now. So I could see it happening. That's just my opinion. And if it did, here's the thing. We talk about it all the time, but when the title does change, it does need to be meaningful. It doesn't need to be a fly by the seat of your pants. Oh, let's just do it to do it. It needs to be believable. And to me, this would be believable. I can believe, as great as Nick Aldis is, that Eddie Kingston, with the promos that he cuts and the stories that he tells, I could believe that he could come out in one night, and because he's so fired up for that opportunity, he could beat Nick Aldis. I would believe that. It wouldn't be one of those things where I see a lot in mainstream wrestling right now where I'm like, that dude would never win. You know, like I could believe it. And so for me,
let me pose this question to you. Let me pose it to both of you. And I really want to challenge you as students of the sport of wrestling here, okay? Because we're saying all this stuff about Eddie Kingston, and it's all true. Again, if I hope, you know, we tweeted this hoping that Eddie Kingston would at least listen in, because this is an Eddie Kingston mutual or an admiration society. We love him. He's one of the most compelling. I wrote those words. I mean, I believe that, and he could do this. So, but I think we all can agree that if we are chess players going into this match and there was a chink in the armor of Eddie Kingston that we were going to exploit, it would be that emotionalism, that passion, where I'm not thinking clearly here. I'm thinking purely in emotion. Flip the script. Tell me, point to me, where is that weakness? Where is that chink in Nick Aldis's armor that Eddie Kingston's going to have to exploit? Because I'm going to tell you right now, it's not like Eddie Kingston is a powerful, powerful force, and he cuts a promo like no other, and he does bring a lot of passion, maybe more so than anybody. But it's not like Nick Aldis hasn't faced emotional opponents like King Shane Williams or Tim Storm or James Storm or Cody Rhodes. He's faced emotional opponents before where there's been emotion in the game. But what if I'm Eddie Kingston, I'm looking at Nick Aldis, where can I find that chink in that armor? Because guys, I don't see it, man. I don't see a weakness in Nick Aldis's game. I don't see a weakness that can be exploited right now. To me, it's like if there's going to be a weakness that's going to emerge, it's going to be something like distraction or age or injury or something like that. Time. Time is undefeated against all opponents. But right now, Nick Aldis is in his prime. He's the best in the world.
I mean, you could say overconfidence and lack of emotion. I mean, that complacency. You could say that, and I'm not calling Nick Aldis complacent. I'm just saying if I'm putting myself in Eddie Kingston's shoes and I'm building a case for cutting promos, I'm going to say, hey man, you've been the champion for this long. Well, guess what? Your days are numbered because you've never fought anybody like me. He'll say that. He has said that. He said that in a promo about Nick Aldis and about Cody Rhodes, coincidentally. And so, I mean, that's his approach to it, is that, you know what? Yeah, you're a great grappler, and yeah, you've got the title that I want right now, but I could see him saying, like, you've had it for a long time and you're probably pretty comfortable. I'm not comfortable, and I'm coming at you with a different level of emotion and intensity. And so, I mean, to me, that's believable. I mean, and again, it's different strokes for different folks. I get what you're saying.
And you know I love you, right? So you know what's coming.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I love you, and I love wrestling with the MMA. That's my brother. I love WWE Front Row. I love James Lawrence. These are all my people. But there is not a single wrestler in the NWA or Impact or Ring of Honor who does not suffer from the ailment of overconfidence. There's not a single one of them who does not think that they should be the one carrying the 10 pounds of gold. Not a one.
Well,
so what would you say to something like in our chat right now, Wrestling with the MMA is saying the weakness in Aldis's armor, to go back to the point you made, is he says that the weakness in Aldis's armor is Aldis himself. Maybe he's referring to that confidence. Maybe just
it is. I mean,
like Will mentioned.
But, I mean, it's that same brand of confidence that prompted Eddie Kingston to tweet out, to call out Aldis, to say that he's better. That's overconfidence too. It's like everybody, every I don't want to get political here, so don't take this the wrong way, but we like to talk about the brashness.
Here we go.
We like to talk about the brashness and narcissism of the current president. But every statesman who seeks that high office has a level of that. You have to. I mean, that's part and parcel of the role you play, and part of rising to that level of being at the very peak, the mountaintop. Even Tim Storm went in saying, I promise you, this is on the first episode of Power. I promise you at the end of the night, I'm going to be champion. He said that. Well, guess what? Didn't happen. It wasn't in the cards. As it turns out, on that day, Aldis was the better man. So I'm just saying they all suffer. Overconfidence to me is just like, that's like painting. It's like saying, well, they all have the potential of being on the receiving end of a drop kick. Well, that's just part and parcel of being a wrestler. They're all overconfident. They should be.
Well, and that's why.
But I love you.
And that's why I said overconfidence mixed with complacency, because we have seen that storylines historically, is that a guy will be a champion for a long time, and there is a certain level of complacency from a storyline standpoint that does set in because they're comfortable with that title. It becomes kind of part of their identity, and they take it for granted a little bit. It's good storytelling. It's not a knock on Aldis himself as an athlete or a pro wrestler. It's just you posed the question of, if I'm Eddie Kingston, where's the chink in the armor? That was the first thing that came to my mind. Possibly complacency, coming from that. So yeah, man. I mean, to me, it's believable. I haven't really been keeping up with the chat. It looks like there's a lot of chatter. I don't know if they're roasting me or Rob or what they're doing.
I'm sure.
No. I think the chat's been like a pretty healthy debate as well. I mean, actually, let's run through some of the comments just real quick, if you guys don't mind. We'll like flow through one of my favorite things so far has been Dan Kellogg. Way back had brought up there should be a game called Nick Aldis's Tap Out, which I thought was nice. Back to the punch out discussion. So. But yeah, I asked about favorite Kingston moments also. So just to shout out some of those, Dave Doovey mentioned the stab 'em up at the tapings. James Lawrence mentioned the look into my eyes promo, Will, which you sent out to us in the Discord earlier today.
Listen, that promo, and I don't know if this was the clip that I found is probably longer, but it was literally only 60 seconds long. And it was him calling out Pope, and he had the Dawsons with him. And he comes, I mean, it was the most raw, like pure, real show of wrestling emotion that I may have ever seen. Like it shook me in like the best way possible. And he was just like, it was great. We'll have to send out the link to that if just because to me, that's the quickest. Hey, if you don't know Eddie Kingston and you want to get, if you got 60 seconds to spare, watch this and you'll know what Eddie Kingston's about, because this will tell you all you need to know.
I don't know how you're on the other side of that promo and you're a guy like Pope, much less Pope, like Nick Aldis or whatever. Like you're on the other side of a guy talking to you like Eddie Kingston is in that promo, that you're not like half afraid that he's gonna at least get that eye or something. Like he's gonna take something with him. And you're not coming out whole.
And that was the realism of it too, the look into my eyes thing. I mean, Pope, you watch that promo and he gets behind the Dawsons. He puts them in front of him and he's looking between it. And Kingston says, that's fine, get behind him, but look at me. Because he was just like, I'm here to talk to you. I want you to listen to me. And that was just so like gritty to me that it was awesome. I
mean, it just struck me as like that like he's meaning what he's saying. This isn't like, this is like, it's not just like some, hey guys, we're backstage, I'm gonna cut this promo on you. I mean, when he talked about homicide as the man who has saved him from suicide, I felt it, and I feel it. And I there's a post in here in the chat from James Lawrence. Champ always has a target on his back. Watching the guy from the streets challenge the Jaguar owner, and then WWE Front Row chime me in that it's a brilliant story, classic. Actually, it should take Kingston several times to get it, including a DQ, but when he does, it will be special. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're hearing it from me, if it does happen, it will be special, and Eddie Kingston will be worthy of it. I'm just saying that it wasn't Dusty Rhodes that defined the 80s. It was Ric Flair, and it's not going to be Eddie Kingston. He's going to be one of the ones. Dusty Rhodes is one of the ones that defined the 80s, but the 80s was the decade of Flair, and the 2020s is going to be the decade of Aldis. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think that's a whole different debate, but yeah.
I was about to say the same. Yeah, I feel like.
Why is it a different debate, man? Yeah, see, y'all always get man.
Well, no, because we're
always gagging up, bro.
we're talking about this singular feud that's budding and how we can see. We're not talking about who's going to be the premier wrestler of the 2020s. That's a whole different conversation.
Well, I mean, like Will even said, like he believes even if Aldis like drops it here, he's gonna win it back. I mean, I think we've said that. Like this is not Aldis's last title reign.
He didn't say it strongly enough.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll yell it next time and I'll use more curse words.
I feel like this could be. We've talked in the past about, hey, I mean, Aldis has had some great matches already, some classic matches. But what's going to be that captivating feud, that career-defining feud like Flair Rhodes? It might be this one. And all I'm saying is that if it is this one, it's worthy. It's worthy of that. And I would love to see this be something like WWE Front Row talked about, going back and forth where Kingston always almost there, and just falling short. And then ultimately it happens and it's special. But the person who defines the feud is not going to be him. It's going to be Aldis. That's all I'm saying. Because I see this as a feud going on for not just a one-shot thing. This is something I think could really, really enrich all of us, the whole NWA, the entire wrestling world for many years to come. Kingston, I mean, we think about like how great a feud Kingston and Wicked was, and Wicked's great, not taken away from him at all. He's one of my favorites, but we're talking about Nick Aldis now. And Kingston and Nick Aldis, I think they both up their game, and this is something that we see, this drama, this epic, again, this Greek mythology playing out for many years, but it's going to be Aldis that characterizes the 2020s, that will be the avenue or the venue of this feud, this budding feud. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and I think the one point where we really agree in all of this is that I think that is correct, but I think that guys like Eddie Kingston and maybe some other guys that we don't even know of right now are going to play a major part in defining that for Nick Aldis. Because for me, if we're waiting for a carbon copy of Nick Aldis, another statesman, another suit-wearing person to come along, that's not an interesting feud, as interesting of a feud to me as an Eddie Kingston, or as, you know, someone off the wall, you know, that creates that contrast between Nick Aldis as a champion and what they want. You look through history, and that happened all through history, and that made, just like you said, those compelling, that Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, they were not carbon copies of each other. You know what I mean? So that's what made that interesting. If Dusty Rhodes was the same person as Ric Flair, that would have just been like, okay, which limo riding, wheeling, dealing guy's going to win? No, Dusty Rhodes, they were completely different, and they had completely different motivations, and that's what made it interesting. So that's why I am for an Eddie Kingston storyline, even a long-term Eddie Kingston storyline, because I know it'll be developed right, with respect to creative storytelling and things like that, because that could be what elevates Nick Aldis even further than he is right now, you know, putting him in a storyline like that and letting him shine more than he could against even a Cody or a Marty Scurll.
But see, I didn't like it when you had said, no, I'm just kidding. Everything you said just then is perfect. Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree.
Well, I disagree, Rob. Sorry.
Oh man, no. Whatever the case is this is going to be an interesting battle, and I do want to point out that this is a thing we haven't seen anybody do before now. Eddie Kingston's taking advantage of a scenario. Eddie Kingston was not a guy that was in the title picture when Power ended at Superpower. I mean, this was going into a Marty Scurll feud. Who knows where from there? Eddie Kingston was like dealing with the Pope. He was just doing all this other stuff. But here Eddie Kingston is like seeing this lag in action and is saying, you know what? Why can't I get a shot? And I think that's going to be a big move. And it could be a big move that sparks a lot. It could be that this is just the first shot fired, and now this is going to open the gates for a lot of challengers. If Aldis takes this fight, which he seems interested in doing this, if Aldis accepts this fight, the floodgates open for anybody to challenge Aldis now. And so if he can get through Eddie Kingston, who knows? Who knows what happens from here? Like maybe this just opens the doors, like I said, for more people to come challenging for the 10 pounds of gold. Aldis is going to have to put his money where his mouth is. The break's over, it sounds like.
Yeah, and it also opens the doors for some other interesting twists and turns. I mean, in the relationship element, because obviously, you know, Nick Aldis and Tom Latimer are very, very close friends inside the NWA and out in real life. They do tried and true. They're both educators. They're taking on students, and they're just out there putting stuff out, showing what their training regimen. They've got a strong kindred friendship. They're countrymen. But you know, Eddie Kingston and Tom Latimer also have a history together as friends. He and James Storm and Tom Latimer. So this could be something where I think that WWE Front Row had mentioned, hey, what does this do with Strictly Business? And that might be something because of the history.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, as we recall, as Power in the latter episodes of Power, of course, Tom Latimer, like you said, he and Kingston have a past together as partners, but Latimer is lined up with Aldis in Strictly Business. But you dropped that other name, James Storm, and we saw a nice trio combination going on there for a little bit when it came to the Pope and the Bouncers. Eddie Kingston, James Storm, and Eli Drake had formed quite the alliance, like together. So that might be the answer to WWE Front Row's question right there. How do you counter Strictly Business? Well, the tag team champions seem to have Eddie Kingston's back. So, and you know that James Storm and Eli Drake are no fans of Nick Aldis.
Right. And again, that there it is. In those Impact days, Eli Drake is another one. Eli Drake, James Storm, Tom Latimer, and Eddie Kingston all were. I'm not going to say they were like the clique, but they were kindred spirits, and so that has the potential because this is one thing that we like about the NWA, and that we say this all the time, is the NWA doesn't insult anybody. They don't rewrite history. They don't try to deny the past, and it's a common knowledge fact that Eddie Kingston and Tom Latimer are friends or have been friends, and have worked together and have a kinship, just like Nick Aldis and Tom Latimer do. So this seems to me like that might be the thing that might be the matter that's exploited to make the championship picture really, really, really questionable or really shaky for the champ.
Will, you awake?
Yeah, I'm here.
Putting you on the spot, bro.
I was just trying to think of how to disagree with Rob, but I can't on that. So we'll move on. If I don't have anything disagreeing to say, I'm quiet. I'm just kidding.
I do love that they've called themselves the think tank in the chat now, with everybody going at it. And I love that because they are coming up with all kinds of ideas, like just the series of matches that Kingston and Aldis could have up until just recently. James Lawrence is throwing out that Eddie Kingston doesn't counter Strictly Business. He gets screwed. And then they finally have to have the NWA's first cage match in the modern era. And then that sounds awesome too. So, but yeah, then Front Row's in here with Drake, Storm, Homicide, and Kingston. Like that's all a crew right there that could easily try to counteract Strictly Business, which has come up. So that's so I don't know. I feel like Strictly Business is not as big a concern to an Eddie Kingston as they might be to a lot of people. Like Eddie seems to have clout in the locker room and has some backup if he needs it. So Aldis needs to be aware of that as well. If he's going to bring his buddies to the fight, Kingston's got buddies too.
Yeah. And they know that. And that's the thing, though. I think the way that this promotion is going to treat this, though, they're going to treat it like, not like a gang fight. They're going to treat it like a prize fight. And so, I think that the way that at least Aldis and not Homicide, Kingston have conducted themselves so far in their engagements with one another on social media has been all respectful. All, hey, this is what I think I can do. Hey, I'm willing to do this. Well, our champion's not a coward. And then, it's been very matter of fact. And that's how I see it playing out. Of course, there's emotion involved and there's personalities involved because it's also a human sport. So, who knows what's going to happen. But, I'd love to see this just be at least the first in the series be just a clean 2 out of 3 falls, kind of like an into the fire style match. And, let's see what style is the best, let's the best man wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And so lots of great ideas in there. I see Jay Cal has joined us from the Alliance blog. He's asking about Strictly Business. Should have been here about 10 to 15 minutes ago, Jay Cal. We covered that with Eli Drake and James Storm and Homicide. But I will say, we want to hang out with the guys in the chat a little bit more. So I think what we'll do here, fellas, if you're down, let's go ahead and wrap up what will be the podcast portion of this show. If you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you hit like. And if you're listening to us on your podcast feed, go give us a 5-star review. That helps us get in front of more people. What we like to do here is we'll wrap up the podcast portion. Then we're just going to jump in and hang out with the live chat. And it lets us be a little bit more interactive. And the conversation can now go who knows where. It's 11 o'clock here. It's after dark now. And so it gets real. Who knows what's going to come up? Anything is on the table. There's no limits here. We're going to talk wrestling. I mean, that's pretty much it. We're not going to talk about Rob's Pornhub addiction or anything like that. We're just talking wrestling. But you guys can join us for that. And so if you haven't already, Sundays and Tuesdays, we are here every night live talking to you guys about NWA mostly, but we get into whatever. But Rob, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you online if they want to ask you about that addiction?
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at rstinson4. I'm on Tinder at. I've been saving that one, man. rstinson4 on Twitter. rdstinson4 on Instagram. Dr. Robert Stinson, just Robert Stinson on Facebook. But our content is right here on This Is the NWA podcast, and you can see our stuff every Friday morning. We drop Piper's Notes, and then of course you can find me here every Sunday and Tuesday night on This Is the NWA After Dark with my best buds.
Will, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm at Hey It's Will on Twitter and Instagram, at Real Hey It's Will on TikTok, and just a couple things to note. I mentioned it earlier in the show, but the NWA Pod Title Challenge, check that out on Twitter. Send us your favorite title belts, putting together a bracket for that. And then, as we mentioned also earlier, the Friday Hot Tag, a little collab that we're doing with Jay Cal over at the Alliance blog. Every Friday on Instagram, we're trying to build up, we've got a pretty good audience on Instagram, and a lot of you guys interact with us over there, but just trying to utilize all the platforms and hit the NWA fam wherever they are. And so Instagram every Friday at 3 p.m. noon Pacific. Jay Cal and I go live for about 15-20 minutes, talk about a hot topic. This week was the first one. We talked about empty arena wrestling. We took that and threw it up on our YouTube feed. It's also on Jay Cal's, the Alliance blog's audio feed if you want to catch it over there. But just trying to create some more synergy and some collaboration among us in the NWA fam. So definitely go check that out if you didn't get a chance to join us this Friday.
Also, don't forget over at thenwapod.com, we've got some of that sweet NWA fan merch there available for you at cost. Yeah, look at Will's shirt.
Right here and right here. We got it right here.
Look at that. Coffee mug. I got one of those right here. Sweet coffee mugs. And everything's marked down, man. Or if you're feeling froggy, you just put in your email address and you're entered to win a free piece of merch from the store. Whatever you want, we'll send it to you. I don't know when the end of that is, so we'll figure it out. But
I think we need to put a cap on it, and so I think we should do it Tuesday. Let's go ahead and put that limit, because we've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. But let's say Tuesday, we'll put all the email addresses in a hat and we'll draw a name. So now till Tuesday, make sure you sign up for the mailing list if you want to be entered into that.
Tell all your friends. Our boy Turbo is going to be doing a giveaway right after that. I don't even know if I've told these guys about it yet, but we're going to be working that into everything. So give some props to Turbo. He's going to be, well, I mean, I might as well say it now. Eventually, we're going to figure out a giveaway for Turbo. He's offered for the show to whatever stipulations we decide on, he will buy you any piece of merchandise from the NWA store and have it sent to you.
Nice.
So Turbo. A very nice thing. So the Bearded Trio has to coalesce. I don't remember what the word I'm looking for here is. We got to talk about it. Is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. All right. But until then, you can go to at the NWA Pod. Thank you guys so much for being here. Everybody in the chat, we're coming to just hang out with you right after this. If you're listening to this, we do appreciate you listening. And we hope at some point you get to join us live. I'm at This Is Gary Horn always, and the show is at the NWA Pod on all the social medias. So check it out. And until next time, enjoy your gravy cake. All right.
Convalesce.
I said convalesce.
First of all, point A. That's a great word. But point two. don't think that's what you meant.
I don't know.
I didn't hear about Turbo's giveaway, man. I was like, did this joker just say convalesce?
Oh my god. Anyway, so here we are. Here we are, everybody. Chat room, fake take. We're here to talk to you guys. We're just hanging out, just shooting the shit now. Now it's the after hours.
I like the hashtag NWA fam think tank. We should brand it as that from now on, because it's exactly what it is, man. It's a chat room full of smart wrestling fans who know their stuff and having some insightful conversations. I love it.
It's a chat room full of smart wrestling fans and wrestling with the MMA.
Oh gosh.
Oh no.
Salty, Rob.
I'm just kidding, man. That's my boy. He knows I love him. We give each other hell, but he knows I love him.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a chat room convalesce is what
it's a kerfluffle, man, is what that is.
It's a kerfluffle going on in the chat room. Oh man, I do love the idea, by the way, of Dave Scooby. Thunder Rosa could be brought in to counter Camille of Strictly Business. We did not consider that before, but somebody mentioned Ashley Vox as well. But we've seen Kingston and Thunder Rosa have some interaction, like on social medias and such. So they apparently have a relationship. I feel like I've also seen him have a relationship with Allison Kay, like that they're pretty tight. So there are female components to battle Camille. And let's see what else is going on in the chat with you guys. My friend Izzy wasn't crazy about the Friday hot tag. Did you guys talk about this already?
Mm-mm.
I see some laughing. That's got to be an inside joke, right?
I don't know what's up with that front row. You're gonna have to explain that one. He also said they interviewed LaGreca and Jay-Z Flair of the Nation show last night. If folks want to check that out, so make sure you go check out Jay-Z Flair and Dave LaGreca. I guess he's all right too. Let's see what else. Yeah, James Lawrence says, so since I'm Mojo, the Aldis versus Kingston match into reality, I guess I should just push Thunder Rosa and Camille. I mean, or you could just say like the most obvious match that has to happen. You could just do that and pretend that you're Nostradamus.
Well, he had, to his credit, he has been talking about Kingston and Aldis for a while. I like the last several weeks.
I will say, I was going to say earlier, I don't know the exact timeline, and maybe we didn't talk about it until Kingston brought it up on Inside the NWA. But I feel like we've been talking about the possibility of this happening for a while. And then when it came to fruition last week, I was like, man, we've been talking about this. Like, you know, like this wasn't like completely out of left field. I don't think we realized it was going to happen this quickly, or the talks of it were going to happen this quickly. But I mean, it definitely was not off our radar. You know, we've been thinking about it. So
I wonder, like, has there been any thought about, because it's like, you know, this tweet went out. Not, again, don't take this the wrong way, because I don't want to sound like I'm dissing Kingston. I'm not. I think this is going to be phenomenal. It's good for everybody. Has there been any discussion amongst anybody about like where Kingston stands in the pecking order, though, as far as like contenders? You know, he doesn't hold one of the two subordinate titles. He's been really, you know, preoccupied with the Pope and the Dawsons, hasn't really gotten the upper hand on that. And so why is it that just by the virtue of this tweet that this is, and the champ's willingness to entertain that, why is it that this is appropriate? And I'm not saying it's not. I'd just like to hear your thoughts on it.
Sorry, go ahead. Izzy is Izzy from like NXT, like the Bailey fan. Apparently that's who you mentioned this last night, Will. His name is Cody, and he said that he tweeted us about the hot tag. He said he thinks it's in good fun.
Okay.
But she does a show called The Hot Tag.
Well, hey, we'll put it over. We're not. I mean, we're not trying to trademark a wrestling term. We were just using it because it made sense. But hey, we'll put her over if she wants to let us do that. I mean, we all play nice here. So, but yeah, my question, going off what you said, Rob, I mean, what was the pecking order for Marty Scurll? Like, how did that come into? I mean, so I get what you're saying, but
other than narrating the story and all that, I don't know that, and them having history, I don't know that there necessarily was one. So, and again, that's why I'm saying that it's not that there has to be. I mean, I think that the champion is a fighting champion and he defends the title against worthy competitors. I don't think it should be defended flippantly. Not that this is, but I don't. It's like, yeah, I don't know that Scurll wasn't. I mean, he wasn't even in the promotion, but Eddie Kingston has been preoccupied as of late, and he's not gotten the better end of this issue with the Pope and the Dawson. So, and it's more the momentum is there of when you're listening to the interview we quoted earlier that Kingston was in, and he's talking about deciding not to come out of retirement. He says, "I haven't accomplished everything I've wanted to accomplish yet." I wonder what he had in mind. If he's thinking about is he thinking about the NWA title? Is that what's motivating?
I think he is, man. I think he is, because he said, as I mentioned earlier in a promo, and I think he said this on Inside the NWA, that in his mind, that is the top title in wrestling, and as it should be. It should be revered by everyone as that. But if that's how he really feels, then that's got to be his ultimate goal at some point. So why wouldn't he go for it?
Yeah, I think that if we're there's got to be at some point when things return to some normalcy, there's got to be an avenue for Aaron Stevens to be a natural challenger. He is the national championship title holder, and whatever you think about him or not, if we really think that title means something, he's the number one contender, and he's not even in discussion. Actually, there was a little side story with he and question mark, wanting to challenge for the tag belts, and that'd be cool too. But then you've got the TV title, which there is a stipulation that if you defend it so many times, you're guaranteed a shot. So that ranks somewhere there in the contendership. And I'm just wondering, like, as far as in-ring work, at least Marty Scurll, has a history of competition on big time pay-per-views. He's well known. He's an active competitor. He's got a quality wins under his belt. Not that Eddie Kingston doesn't. I'm just thinking, like, what have you done for me lately? Marty Scurll was active at the time. It'd be like, Flip Gordon or Roosh or PCO or some of those guys. They're in Ring of Honor. They're very much in that pecking order. And so by default, I mean, since we look at the NWA as the overarching championship for everybody, AEW, WWE, Ring of Honor, whatever, it's, it would seem more natural for a Marty Scurll to come in and say, hey, here I am to challenge for this. And remember, it wasn't like Nick Aldis just said, hey, I'm going to give it to you. There was back and forth. There was the $1 million stipulation and this and that. Hey, I'll pay for everybody's ticket. So they had to come to an accord on how this was going to play out. So it wasn't automatic. But boom, Eddie Kingston tweeted it. Within moments, Nick Aldis tweeted. I think we broke the story on this show. Within moments, Nick Aldis tweeted back, hey, I want this to happen. And again, don't take me wrong. I want it to happen too. I just like to get feedback from the NWA fam think tank out there in the chat and you guys, like, is this, is this merited right now? And why is it good for the business?
That's a great point. And I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if because of that, it's not just a quick turnaround and, hey, let's just do the match. There may be some stipulations. There may be some, I mean, Aldis did reply, challenge accepted, but I mean, there could be some notion of this pecking order type thing and say, well, if the NWA comes back and says, well, Kingston's going to have to beat this person and this person, or there's going to have to establish some kind of realistic basis for it, I wouldn't be shocked. And I think it would create.
I mean,
more
I would have to jump in here with Wrestling with the MMA and say it sounds like y'all ain't ever watched the WWE before. Like you just walk out and say, I'm ready to fight. I want the title. And they're like, well, let's do it tonight. The title's going up.
No, I mean in
So
WWE, in WWE, you can like lose a mid card title and the next night be in the main event for Universal.
This seems like unprecedented times, though. It's like it's much more. Again, I know we've drawn this analogy before, like Rocky Apollo Creed, where Apollo's opponent for some reason can't he can't do it, and so they build this story. Well, let's take this journeyman, this guy who's paid his dues and give him a shot, in his hometown, and that has that sort of feel where right now the world is different. The world has changed. The landscape is different. And people are doing their things and they're limited by what they can do through storyline or promotion or whatever. And Eddie Kingston saying, hey, man, you talk about you wanting to scrap. I'm here. Let's do it. And so it takes on this almost this like, to me, that's where the merit's at. Like this is the story that it's born out of necessity. We want to see our champion wrestle. We want to see Eddie Kingston wrestle. Yeah. They're saying they're available to do it. Let's do it.
I think that's
well said. And that was kind of the takeaway from Hot Tag with Jay Cal and I on Friday was just that, this is unprecedented, not to use one of the overused terms that every marketer is using right now. But, this is a different time period. And if you're wanting to bust out of the gate with a prize fight feel matchup, these two guys, man, those would be my top picks. I mean, yeah, there's some other guys that I could put in there with Nick as a contender, and maybe if you go back a few months into the power storylines, it makes more sense. But if we're just talking purely, hey, it's been months, the wrestling industry has been turned upside down in the last 3 months. We got to come out of the gate strong with something. Aldis and Eddie Kingston, man, that's definitely a way to go. So
I think enough story is just the fact that it's these two guys. Like it makes Aldis look good that he's accepted the challenge, but I mean, it's just like Eddie Kingston's the guy that stepped up and was like, dude, I've been doing nothing. I'm ready to fight. I want to fight. I want that belt. If nobody else is going to take this opportunity to step up and put themselves in the middle of this thing, I'm going to be the guy that does it. And then it so happens that also Aldis is like itching for a fight, and it makes both guys look good. It makes Eddie Kingston like he's the man who thought this up. He's the man who was like, screw it. What can I lose by issuing the challenge? And Aldis looks good and saying like, you know what? I'm itching for it too. Let's do it. I'll put the title up. Let's have a match. I mean, I don't know how much more story you need out of that. Like it just is. It's like in these times.
Let's not forget that, if you include Carneyland in storyline, since Power was paused and Carneyland started, I could be completely forgetting, but Eddie Kingston was really the only person who mentioned specifically having a title match. So, I mean, if you consider Carneyland, I know it was out there and it was different, but part of storyline and continuation of storylines, he was the only person in the last 3 months that had really called out Aldis, because none of the other storylines from Power had really continued with any kind of like solid, storytelling. But so I mean, that's something to consider too. I mean, him and Homicide were on inside the NWA and brought it up. So I mean, that's part of it as well.
Yeah. Brian Rose is in the chat and he says this is the Nick Aldis show now. Brian Rosa, you know what?
I'm trying to be fair and balanced. That's why I'm here.
This month is Thunder Rosa's birthday. I believe it's this month. So we have to do an episode just devoted to Thunder Rosa's career and the legacy of the Burke. And I really want to do that episode, man. I think sometime in July.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that definitely has to happen. Let's talk about something else going on with them. On Friday, September the 18th, I mean, just out of nowhere, I was just thinking about mentioning this anyway. Mission Pro Wrestling is having its very first event, and hope to God it's going to be streaming Brian Rosa, you're in the chat. I think you could probably let us know what's going on with that.
They announced it this week. It's going to be streaming.
Oh, did they? I know I saw a thing. They were like trying to finalize something. So, he's trying to pass the buck now. He's like, let's talk about everyone. Listen, there's a title match going on that people care about, and we were potentially. So we're talking about that. Now we're talking about Mission Pro Wrestling. So, and we talked about Thunder Rosa versus Camille earlier. So, anyway, who are the names? Who are the names we've seen here? Because let's talk about it. Mission Pro Wrestling has announced this event Friday, September 18th, 2020, in Buda, Texas. I want to watch this thing. We're going to cover it. We're going to cover. I'm already saying it. We haven't even talked about this really
absolutely.
for sure. But we're covering it. We're covering it like for reals. Like if it's streaming, we're going live after. We're doing the post show on Mission Pro Wrestling's first event. Hell Hath No Fury is what it's called, and it is streaming on the Title Match, Title Match WN Network. Is that what he's got here? So that is going to go, and you can go to missionprowrestling.net for more info. I'm just going to scroll through here, Brian. Hopefully your Twitter is up to date because I am going to just start naming names. We got Promise Braxton in the house. Brittany Nicole. Holodead is going to be there. Oh, here it is. I see it now. Title Match Wrestling Network. You're right. Okay, I see it. On September, it says September 18th. Now listen, y'all. I want to tell you something, Brian Rosa. Like you've been posting stuff. Like I see, like Brittany Nicole is going to be on commentary at Hell Hath No Fury on Friday, September 18th, 2020. But then, like right after that, you got Hell Hath No Fury streaming live on Title Match Wrestling Network Saturday, September 28th, 2020. Y'all got to pick a day. That's all I'm saying. September 18th. What day is that really? That is a Friday. So I don't know if Title Match don't know that or what's going on, but just saying. Rachel Rose is going to be there. I suppose Thunder Rosa will probably show up at some point. La Rosa Negra. Baby D is going to be there. She seems fun. I've never seen her before, but she'd be looking wild. It is on a Friday. Brian Rosa has confirmed. Jenna Lynn is going to be there. Who else? Maddie Rinkowski is going to be there. Sky Blue. Alex Garcia is going to be there. Who else? Those may be the only names so far, except that you guys also announced you signed Big Swole. So how about that? That is a huge get.
That's big
for Mission Pro. Like, what is going on there? You signed Big Swole. I'm loving this. You guys are killing it right now over at Mission Pro Wrestling. And no, we're going to be all over that thing. So bet your butt. But yeah, if you guys haven't seen it already, make sure you go over to missionprowrestling.net. Check this thing out. They do custom wrestling matches too. Like you can book your old matches. Like you can just do it using the roster over at Mission Pro Wrestling. Breaking news. Do you want a breaking news? A spoiler? Alert?
Nah.
I'm going to give you one. I'm going to give you one anyway because I'm excited. My nipples are hard. Like a sexual way. I mean, I don't know. What?
Too much information.
I'm just saying, I'm excited about this just from a fight perspective. Lindsay Snow is going to be at Hell Hath No Fury, the American Kaiju.
That's the match I want to see, man. I want to see Lindsay Snow and Thunder Rosa, man.
Yep.
Who doesn't?
Make it happen.
Oh, my God. I'm excited. I'm pumped about this. All women run, shot, directed, everything. Mission Pro Wrestling. Let's see what these ladies can do. We got to give it our full support, people. We got to get behind this thing. And so already, these names are just huge. Just like I said, Thunder Rosa, Alex Garcia, Baby D, Holodead, Lizzie Thorne, Alabama, the Insidious One, Alejandro the Lion, and Bert Vixen. All of it. So many people. And Brian Rosa says, you got it, Robert.
My man.
There it is. There it is.
Dream match for me. I can't wait, man.
Oh no, I get it. Oh my God, this is going to be great. This is a show you cannot miss, and the NWA fam, the hashtag NWA fam, has to come out in full force to support it. Let's make it happen. Let's make this a success, so we see some more great quality wrestling and support these ladies in doing this has never been done before. This is huge. This is history right here. I almost said unprecedented, and I held myself back because you said it was overused. Like I reeled myself back in. Oh man!
I'm thinking bearded trio summit if they're having fans of this thing.
Hello, there we go.
All right, listen, man. If you'll be traveling out to Texas in September, we could do it.
I was about to say
you said that like it's not like we're going to be going to like the Sudan or something. I mean, you don't need a passport. It's in the United States.
All right, bro.
Was it like?
I'll tell you what. If we get Thunder Rosa defending the Burke against Lindsay Snow at that event, we got to make something happen. Like we got to fight for it.
We'll do a live pre-show. We'll do a live post-show on site. We'll do it all.
Yeah, we gotta blow this thing up. Not like literally, but just.
I mean, we get the wives. This is all women's show, so we'll go and let the wives do the hard work of doing the post-show and pre-show. We'll go in there and enjoy the match.
There you go. That's it. But so no longer the Nick Aldis show. Now it's the Mission Pro show. Hope you're happy, Brian Rosa.
You know it.
WWE front rows in there. Take my money. Brian Rosa says, go ahead and get your plane tickets.
Nice.
I like that.
I'm telling you, man.
Oh, this is gonna be good, guys. We're gonna promote the hell out of this thing because I am super stoked for this show. This is gonna be great. And it's good to just have some quality pro wrestling. It's been so long. It feels like, I mean, I know that some of you guys have been seeing wrestling. I, honest to God, I've been absent from wrestling. I bought the AEW pay-per-view. That's the last thing I saw. And that was the first thing I saw in a while. And I honestly just bought it because I thought Ricky Starks might show up. Just be straight up. And so I wanted to be on top of that if it happened. And so I was like, and I miss wrestling. It's been a while. But it's good to see the wrestling I actually like coming back. That's what I want. That's what I'm pumped up for. I want to see this Mission Pro thing. I want to be right there seeing history being made at this show. I want the NWA to start putting on matches. Hell, I mean, if the Burke is defended at Hell Hath No Fury, to me, that's all in on just as NWA as anything else that's going on. Like that, the NWA Women's title is as important as the World's Heavyweight Championship in my eyes. So let's talk about a random NWA wrestler. Thoughts on Ashley Vox? Hey, Ashley Vox actually got brought up earlier because like somebody was talking about like as far as Eddie Kingston, like if they needed to like combat Strictly Business, she was one of the names along with Thunder Rosa that was brought up. Ashley Vox is great. She has been she's been killing it on social media. She's pretty good at that stuff. And I've liked her. Everything I've seen her do in the NWA is she's gotten the raw deal from a bunch of people that she's just gotten smacked around as far like Melina stable, which honestly, Brian Rosa, your wife she had a hand in that. But you know, maybe she's turned a new leaf. Just saying. Ashley Vox is legit. I like Ashley Vox. And her face when she's wrestling, like she's got intensity in that face. And I do dig that. And so look to see more out of her. Also, I've heard nothing but good things about her and her sister as a tag team as well. So, yeah, WWE about her in the tag team scenario and hoping her sister shows up in the NWA at some point. So we are excited for Ashley Fox and anything she does. Is that another hint, by the way? I don't know. You guys like Ashley Fox?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I echo everything you just said, but I just when I was doing my watch through of NWA Power and just binging it, she was one of the standouts for me, especially early on. That really kind of helped solidify the fact that the NWA did have a solid, not just solid, but thriving women's division that is not rivaled in other professional wrestling promotions, and she had a big part of that, especially early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat here.
Rob, you gotta clear the smoke out before you start talking.
Right. Yeah, I love Ashley Fox and her work. I'd like to see more of her. I don't think we see enough of her. I think, and that's just because I mean, when we get Power, we get it in hour doses, and there's so many. Thunder Rosa is going to occupy a lot of that just because of who she is, and the same with Allison Kay and Marty Bell. There's some others. There's like who was the lady that Camille wrestled on Superpowers? Maddie Max or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was Maddie Max. Yeah.
Karen, what are you doing?
So she kind of reminds me of Ashley Fox and little what.
I think I'm gonna start doing the show this way just to give a different angle.
Please don't.
No, I gotta grab something right here. You keep talking.
So I want to see more. I like what I've seen of Ashley Fox. I want to see her more because I think that she's one that really just looked great in the ring and is obviously well skilled and trained, and it's just like, man, when you guys got Allison Kay and Melina and Thunder Rosa, it's hard. It's like, man, I picked a lucky time to decide to want to emerge as a female wrestler in the NWA when they have really, in my opinion, one of the most, if not the most vibrant women's division. WWE's got a great women's division. No, not taking anything away from them, but NWA, man, gosh. So Ashley Fox, I want to see more of her. I don't feel like we've seen enough of her.
I agree. Ashley Fox does a lot, and she's also done a lot with the, just for the sake of mentioning, she's a very active member in the LGBTQ community as well. So that's another thing that is very interesting about her. But Team Sea Stars is the team she has with her sister, and I've heard nothing but good stuff from like Front Row, especially, who says you should check out her matches in Queens of Combat. Another person that was there, Brian Rosa brought up in the thing, is I'm super bummed about Tasha Steelz being signed with Impact, because I was really digging Tasha Steelz. I was, and I wanted to see more out of her, and then now she's gone. So
yeah, that was tough. I mean, it was
for the time
similar to a Ricky Stark situation where, happy for her that she's gotten a contract over at Impact and is doing things over there, but definitely missing her on NWA. But that, I mean, just as we talked about, I mean, my thing again is, as I started watching NWA Power and not watching it on a week-to-week basis, because I started after all of it had, I started watching NWA Power when everything had already happened except for Superpower. That was the only thing that hadn't aired yet. So I had the luxury of watching it all, like, not in one sitting, but like every day I was watching a different episode, and it was the first time I'd ever seen it. And that was the thing that stuck out to me, was that I didn't feel like there was anyone in the women's division that didn't stick out to me as a quality, like top-notch, high-quality wrestler. And that's something you just don't, unfortunately, you don't see in other promotions. You're right, Rob. I mean, WWE does have a great women's division, and there's a lot of like superstars there and big names, obviously, but at the same time, there's women on that roster that I'm kind of like, could take it or leave it. I don't know if they're really as high quality, but I can't say that for anyone that I've ever seen appear on NWA. They've all been just top-notch, top quality, and that's what stands out to me in the NWA women's division.
Yeah. You know what's funny is Front Row mentioned it too, and I want to give her a shout out because I always mention Savannah Evans, who I've seen wrestle around in our neck of the woods. She wrestles for like Pro Wrestling Turbo locally sometimes, and she's out of Charlotte, I believe. But she's great. She works for High Spots a lot, and I think she does a lot over there. She trains under George South, and Savannah Evans is got a lot of promise. I think. I hope that we see her popping up in more places. But yeah, hopefully Mission Pro gives a lot of opportunity for the women wrestlers out there that are independent and looking for work. I mean, props to Brian Rosa, who I saw tweet out that nobody could top the WWE women's division. He gives them that credit. He knows, but who's next? I think the women in the NWA are still the best. I know I probably seem biased, and maybe I am, but I just don't think that there's another women's.
It's like Will said, every single member of the women's division in the NWA is compelling. The WWE's got a huge women's division, so naturally they're oozing with talent and all that. But it's like everybody in the NWA women's division is amazing. Everybody.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Quality over quantity. That's the way I judge it. So, if you've got a ton of women on the roster, obviously a large percentage of them are top notch, then that's great. But if you're talking top to bottom, NWA is unrivaled.
Yeah, I'm totally with that. And Brian Rosa says the NWA should hire me as a scout. He'll work for cheap. Yeah. No, I agree, Brian. No, there's a lot of good female wrestlers. I was Googling this earlier just to see, I was like, who have I not heard of? Because there are all these names come up and stuff. And there's so many people I don't know. And it's tough, state to state, to keep up with everybody. My main access is going to be the Charlotte scene, I suppose. Guys like WWE Front Row keeping me in the look on people to look out for. Maureen also. They seem to have access, but I don't know how much pull even Maureen has with that stuff. I know her and Savannah Evans are like bros, and we haven't seen Savannah Evans in the NWA. I don't know what's going on there. Also heard a rumor that the Burke is getting defended against Tessa Blanchard. Just side rumor. I don't know who said that. It could be just me right now making shit up, but but just so it's out there online. Now it's true.
Yeah, we're gonna hang you out to dry on that one.
Yeah, I think we will.
That's online.
Rob checks in and out whenever he feels like it on this show. Hey, speaking of Tessa Blanchard, that's who I went to go get earlier. She's live right now. And I'm just kidding. It's my bottle of Teremana tequila. Secretly, I have in my closet. I've been drinking energy drinks, and now I'm like, oh, I got this guy.
Here we go.
Is that an empty bottle that you're about to pretend to drink?
Yes. So it's perfectly safe. It's just water. It's the Rocks brand.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Lady Frost, Front Row. I've seen her announced. And let's see. Yeah, James H. Jackson Jr. talking about NWA women's matches are more like Japanese strong style. I just think everybody everybody in the women's division in the NWA takes it very seriously, and they treat it like fighting. Actually, most of them like Thunder Rosa and Allison Kay, and those two ladies, you could tell they've actually got real training. They're legit, and they're tough ladies no matter where they're at. And so it's just I think it's arguable, but if we were to say tomorrow need to get together and put together a video of the top 5 NWA power matches, or the top 5 matches in the NWA power era of NWA so far, Allison Kay and Thunder Rosa is going to be right there fighting for the top spot. Like I don't think there's much argument with that. Like
that sounds like a topic of discussion for Tuesday. Maybe we do bring our top 5 lists. I don't know. That would be an interesting. But yeah, I agree that would have to be on the list. I will say too. I mention her pretty much weekly, and Jay Cal will back me up on this. But Heather Monroe from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, she's really making a name for herself. She's caught my attention, so that's definitely a name to be aware of. I think we're going to see big things out of her. It'd be cool to see her.
I want to see big things out of Heather Monroe. I think that she's outstanding. I'm a big fan of her. If you want some more insight on her, I could tell you this off camera because I don't want to throw anything too much out there, but you can also go back to our David Marquez interview. And I allude to her because I had a conversation with David Marquez about her because I'm a huge fan of her back in the GPB tapings. And he had some opinions on Heather Monroe and what she was doing. And we talked about it on our live show, but nobody knows that that's what we were talking about. So it's secretive. But anyway, I like Heather Monroe. I like her whole gimmick. I like a lot of stuff about her. I like her. I don't know. Just she's also very pretty, so that helps too. I don't know. That feels sexist. Like I can't say that, but I do think she's very pretty. But anyway, hashtag NWA fam. Rob, what are you doing over there? You have been staring at your crotch for the past half hour.
This is what happens anytime that we'll have a great lively conversation, and then if anybody says these 3 letters back to back, WWE, Rob just does this.
I start pouting, man. I'm like, nah. I'm actually just. I don't even. I'm just texting back and forth with Tanya right now. She's upstairs with I've had this conversation going on with her for the last 15 minutes, but I'm trying to stay engaged here.
What's it about? Do you want to put the text up?
Share your screen.
About how I didn't clean the rice up after the baby was eaten, and it better be cleaned up when I get done. It doesn't matter how late we go. That kind of stuff.
So now we can nominate Tanya Stinson. Tanya Stinson should probably get signed to Mission Pro. She sounds
like a very authoritative lady.
Nah, it's all good, man. She's just we're settling in, we're unpacking and all that. She's like, hey, just make sure you do this before you come up, that kind of stuff. So.
I mean, if we're being real, my wife texted me during the show and was also like, I know you guys are probably going till at least midnight, but the dishes won't do themselves. Just FYI. So, what WWE Front Row wants to know what time is Rob's vacation slideshow?
Oh, and I actually I do those, and those come in the form of what we call table talk. If you haven't seen one of these, I think our last one we actually put on the NWA podcast. I haven't done that in the past just because it's not always specifically wrestling related. I don't want to dilute this channel at all, but I found that there are people who are interested in me too and what I do and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, I'm going to put this on there, and we got some views on that. And so anyway, this I will be putting up the next episode of Piper's Notes, which is going to be the sequel to Petra of the Caribbean, Part 2 on Stranger or on Different Seas. And it'll be all about our South Carolina trip and this and that. So it'll be coming out here sometime this week, but that'll happen.
That was a lot of words.
Just I understand.
Well, I mean, look, we did just come off of a week-long convalescence, which is the proper use of that term. So there's a lot.
Don't dish it out if you can't take it, I guess. Let's go back to talking about.
We're at the summit, man. It was so much fun, but it was like one big roast, man. We're just there, just 3 guys just roasting each other the whole time, man. Just roast after roast after roast. And it's like how we roast WWE Front Row on here or something like that. It's just like always just going on. The banner is nonstop, and it was fun, man.
Yeah, it was a blast. All right, let's jump back in the chat, see what people are talking about. Lady Frost, yeah, I've heard Front Row say a lot about her. James Lawrence wants to see Watts in the NWA. That's 100% Watts for sure. Watts is like Watts feels like he's going somewhere. Like he's I'm happy for Marquez and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and all that, but it's just like Watts is just like too he's just a big dude and got some skills, and it just feels like it's just a matter of time for that dude. I feel like James H. Jackson Jr., we were talking about WWE, he said, oh, you mean we won't entertain you? We won't. I like that. That's clever. Yes, it was. Rob did give too many words for Whiskey Gary. It's Tequila Gary.
Gary, here's the difference between this is valuable content right here. Here's the difference between Whiskey Gary and Tequila Gary. Tequila Gary becomes like a motivational speaker. I don't know if you back me up on this, Rob. Last week, like there was something like it's like it's different than Whiskey Gary. Whiskey Gary's like kind of cool and just kind of slumped over and like, yeah, man, like this is great. But Tequila Gary is like, he's got like some energy and some drive, and so he's very positive and uplifting. I kind of prefer Tequila Gary, to be honest.
And then we had Craft Beer Gary last night, and this is the Gary that like he is not he's like swinging his arms out like this and singing, running around, and it's like doing covers of Rent songs, and very 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 festive.
But hey, when Petra needed some water, who got Petra some water? Like I just went over and banged on the windows, and I'm like, hey, get this baby some water.
Yeah, he's like, I bet you I will do it. Watch this. He did. No, you did,
bro. Let's see here. NWA fan fake take. Dave Scooby says, how about this is the NWA Drake take?
Yeah, let's do
it. What do you guys want to talk about? We're here all night. Brian Rosa is currently working on booking Tessa Blanchard. That's the last time I'll make that joke. I'm sorry. I just think it's funny.
Well, here's a question. You guys throw out in the chat some ideas for some old school pay-per-views, Clash of Champions, anything like that we could start throwing up on Monday nights, because we do want to get the Monday Night Wars going again. And like we watched Great American Bash 1990 a couple weeks back, and then of course we talked about it on Tuesday night. But what are some like key pay-per-views? And Rob, you might have some in your mind, probably in front of mine, that we could tee up to start watching together on the Cast app on Monday nights, because I'd love to get a list going of those.
That's a good idea. We've been wanting to do like the Monday Night War thing. I was actually supposed to throw one up there. I'll take the blame. I totally forgot about it last Monday. I don't even know what we were going to throw up there, but just probably one of the Great American Bashes. But I dropped the ball on that, but we are still trying to keep the Monday Night War thing going. If you guys are interested in that thing, just throwing some shows up on a Monday night. The Cast app can honestly go anytime. If you guys have stuff you want to see that you'd love to do a watch party with, let us know. We could set something up. Also, for topic ideas.
I'd love to do like a Chikara show with Eddie Kingston and Blackjack Marciano, man, in his early days. That'd be freaking awesome. Or the show where they where he won the Grand Chikara Championship. It was like this. It was very similar to, if I remember correctly, it was very much like Future Shock, where they had this pull and point system, and it came down to Quackenbush and Kingston in the finals. That'd be cool to do too. I'd love to see, since we're building up to Kingston Aldous.
I don't think anything's necessarily off limits exactly. I mean, just whatever. Like I think we're far enough removed, and since we got nothing new, like I still, there's part of me that wants us to cover Hard Times and the Into the Fire shows, just because we've never covered them. We've never talked about them as the Bearded Trio, and maybe we even get the Bearded Quad Squad involved in that or something like that. Like in fun cover to just do pay-per-view recaps of those shows too. But if you guys have shows you want to see, definitely let us know. Also, if you have topic ideas, because we're always looking for them. Rob actually came up with the one today about just like hitting on Eddie Kingston, and that was a good idea. But we're always looking for stuff to talk about, especially while we wait for everything to start getting back into motion again. Let's see. CryptoZoo Mahler in the chat says, I still think Jazz should return after coronavirus to say she never lost that women's title and have a champion versus champion match. Maybe a hardcore one. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I think that Jazz still has a claim to, and at the time that she gave up the belt, she was like 1,000-something days in or something, wasn't she? I feel like she'd held the belt for a long, long time. She's been doing stuff. I know she was teaching at a school, but I think the last we've really seen of her, I know she was dealing with health issues, which is part of the reason she dropped that title. But we saw her at AEW in one of the battle royals, but that's the last time I see her or remember seeing her.
There's a really delightful conversation about Jazz in your interview with Marty Bell. Well, she goes into her relationship and having worked with her in the past. And if you haven't heard that interview, go back and on the podcast and listen to that, man. It's cool. But yeah, Jazz is someone I think we all respect her, the world out of her. So
yeah. Front Row's mentioning doing a women's wrestling show, just talking about women's wrestlers. Just he'd love to hear our top 10s across all promotions. Top 10 women's wrestlers. That's not a bad idea. That would be a lot of fun. CryptoZoo Mahler brought this up. This is just an interesting topic of discussion for me that I was just thinking about earlier. Somebody mentioned the cage match earlier, that like Kingston and Aldis ending up in a cage. CryptoZoo Mahler said do a tag team ladder match maybe. And like that seems so wild to think about studio wise. Like you can't imagine it. Can you guys imagine outside of a hardcore match, because we've seen that happen, but like what stipulation matches could possibly happen? And could any stipulation matches happen in the studio? Or what's like outside of the realm of what you'd even want to see in the NWA? It's two different questions, but just curious your thoughts on those things.
And Will may have a different perspective, and he may not. There's one reason that Will likes the NWA, and that's because it's a certain style and has a certain flavor about it. And I'm not trying to provoke a conversation or a debate here about stipulation matches. There are people that like that a lot. I'm not one of them. I for me, wrestling is performance sport. It should resemble something like a gentleman's sport, competition with defined parameters and rules. And I think stipulation matches is like Pandora's box. I don't think the title should ever change hands in stipulation matches unless the stipulation is best 2 out of 3 falls or within a cage. Because still it's one-on-one and the best man or the best team or the best woman wins. But I'm just not a fan of them. I think maybe if there were, it's not that there haven't been any in the past that weren't intriguing. I think that you could have that if it were a grudge style match without a title on the line, like a hair versus hair, like, Jimmy Valiant versus Shaska Watley or number 1 Paul Jones, or like the bunkhouse stampede matches that Dusty Rhodes would do with Tully Blanchard or something like that. There was the best of 7 series between Nikita and Tully. I don't know if that's really a stipulation. It still was a series of 7 singles matches. That is, and then of course like War Games and stuff like that. But those were, those stipulation matches almost were always grudge matches. Like, hey, this has gone beyond the limits of us competing under gentlemen's rules in a ring for a title or for a rank on the contenders list. This is now personal, and so we'll throw the stipulation. Sometimes they would throw the lights out, to signal that the promotion no longer sanctioned the match, and they called it a lights out match. So it's certainly entertaining. When it comes down to titles, man, I'm not, I'm in it to see performance sport, simulated combat. under gentlemen's rules for titles, or working up towards a title being in the picture. To me, if you're not competing for titles or not working up to that, then there's really no point. So I don't know. That's my take on it.
I don't like ladder matches. That's just one. It just doesn't. I think we've talked about that before on here too. It's just like it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I agree with you. I don't think that big major titles should change hands on a stipulation match unless it's 2 out of 3. I will add a couple to that list though that I do think that I personally find interesting, and that would be a I quit match or a submission only match. I think that's an interesting stipulation, especially depending on who the two wrestlers are. If they're, great submission grappler, style wrestlers, that's a fascinating stipulation. And also the Iron Man. I appreciate an Iron Man match stipulation. So those would be 2 that I would add to that list that you just gave, Rob. But ladder matches, even like a Falls Count Anywhere match, I have a little bit of a problem with, just because I do have enough tradition in me. I guess I want it to end in the ring, and I want it to stay in the ring as much as possible. And but yeah, I think just specifically about ladder matches, I know they can be exciting, and it can definitely be a spot fest, which is great for the fans and a lot of people and a lot of people's tastes. But for me personally, that was just like just a little too out there for me when you're talking about like professional wrestling.
Yeah. I'm not thinking that, by the way, that the NWA is at all above some weird gimmick matches. James Lawrence points out the old NWA was awfully fond of gimmick matches. I've seen some good suggestions, like Front Row says a strap match could work. James Lawrence mentions chain match. So like the old dog collar match is what I think of when I think of that. But also, the NWA, like the freaking scaffold matches happened back in the day. So those are also, you want to talk about weird matches that like WTF, like the scaffold matches, like it still blows my mind that happened. Like that seems like Jim Cornette like busted both his legs, like falling off that thing. So that's like crazy stuff.
There were some crazy stipulation matches, and then you had like Kevin Sullivan would come in with some crazy stipulation and some weird cage tap match, Chamber of Horrors match or some junk like that, and so definitely, the NWA is definitely not a stranger to gimmick matches, and they happen often, and almost on every pay-per-view there was one that had some sort of role in forwarding a storyline. I don't really like them when a title's involved. I guess that's where I'm coming at. J. Cal points out the 7 levels of hate. One of the most iconic. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. Are you guys know about the 7 levels of hate?
Mm-mm.
This epic feud.
So it's Adam Pearson,
Colt Cabana, man, and it's and basically it's a play on. And J. Cal I don't know what all the stipulations were, but there basically were 7 matches. Adam Pearson said, if I lose this best of 7, I'm done. I'm not coming back. And every match, it was like a best of 7 series, kind of like Magnum Nikita, except in this case, every single match had a unique stipulation, whether it was I quit, best 2 out of 3 falls. I think the last one was a cage match. There was like some sort of lumberjack, like Boston Street Fight or something like that. I it's been a long time, but it was very, 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 again, man, NWA in those days was one of the most vibrant times in the history of the National Wrestling Alliance. I wish it had gotten more like public attention. And I think that the way that the promotion is now, hopefully it will backward enlighten people on that stuff, because man, it was epic. So it's not as though I'm drawing a hard line in the sand saying, oh, we'll never do this. My preference is that a title represents the best wrestler or the best tag team or the best 6-man tag team in the guise of professional wrestling, without any variable that could deflect away from that in-ring ability. So I don't like titles changing hands on stipulation matches under normal circumstances. That's not to say there's not exceptions or that the NWA hasn't done that or that there's been some really awesome ones in the past, just as a matter of preference. But I appreciate J. Cal pointing that out. If you're not acquainted with Pierce and Cabana, 7 Levels of Hate, man, it's iconic, man. It's great.
Well, it's also during a period of time that this is excellent. It would be an excellent time to dive into some history there, and maybe even like stream some of that on the Cast app. Could be worth it because it was during the period of time too, as I recall reading about it, like when Bruce Tharpe and the regime change, like stuff was going on. It was like there was a lawsuit happening, and then the NWA didn't sanction the final match, and it was like all the governing bodies of the NWA are like people that made the decision to want Cabana to be a champion, and they were trying to pay off like Adam Pearce to like drop the title early. So it was some similar stuff to stuff we've seen now, like in the last regime change in the NWA. But yeah, I mean, for those that don't know, I just pulled it up just to see, but it was like it was on different dates. They went through like the whole year, which is kind of cool to think about, just like them doing the 7 levels. It was stage 1 was a first blood match, and there was stage 2 was a Boston Street fight. Stage 3 was an I Quit match. Stage 4 was best 2 out of 3. Stage 5 was a dog collar match. Stage 6 was a Texas death match. And stage 7 was a steel cage match, which was the final one. Yeah. And so, anyway, just interesting to see how that played out. I did see that there was a documentary about this thing. As you were talking, like I just pulled it up just because I was interested. There's a documentary on 7 Levels of Hate, produced by Adam Pearce, and it has all 7 matches in it, with commentary from like David Marquez, and J. Cal is listed on this list of people that did commentary or talked about it, and Colt, and a lot of people. So our boy J. Cal is right in there. Stu Stone, Rick Knox. Anyway, a bunch of people up here. Mick Karsh. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I'd love to get my hands on it. It said you could go to 7levelsofhate.com if you're interested, and pick up that DVD, which, if you'll allow me, I just went to. So here's where you get to order that. That's 7levelsofhate.com.
Okay.
So
legit. Careful.
Careful. Where are we going? We might get banned. Anyway.
The funny thing,
So
too,
that's-
Gary, is you'll be watching like that documentary, or you'll be watching like History and Tradition or the Crockett's or something like that. Any of these old NWA like Elbow Production documentaries or whatever, and then J. Cal will pop in there, man. Like he's involved in all that stuff, dude. He knows this stuff. He's been there when there was only 1 or 2 people that cared. He was one of them, and so he knows his stuff when it comes to that.
Yeah, he's dropping knowledge in the chat right now for everybody too, saying if you look, those 7 matches ended up in different areas too, and the lawsuit changed how the show was going to go. So just anyway, I'm just thrown off by that website. Like, what in the hell about that looked like it should be going like the URL should be 7 Levels of Hate? Like what? I got Google Translate to translate. It looks like it's like a cosmetic surgery website, but it's like, I just can't imagine. It's like some Japanese site that's like saying like, do you hate yourself all 7 levels? Let's fix you up. Anyway, just a real bummer, I guess. How you guys doing out there in the chat world? Anybody else? What else are we talking about here?
I see like
apparently. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Looks like I'm being booked in a match here, man.
Oh yeah, probably. Probably will. Yes.
And he said, I hope it's not against. If you're trying to book me against Alliance Wrestling, it's not. I don't stand a chance. So that wouldn't be much of a match, though.
Oh man.
No, it's a
So
match between
J
the
Cal
three-
says the
between the
documentary
three of
is a.
us.
Oh,
Sorry,
nice.
It's a match between the three of us. That's what it is.
Oh, between us, yes, I stand a chance, Dan, because I just stick and move, man.
Yeah, do you?
My
You do?
dexterity and my.
It's that overconfidence that's going to get you in this.
J Cal says if you go to the Adam Pierce YouTube page, it is available. Just the documentary, not the matches. Apparently, that documentary was limited to 500 copies on DVD, and they sold out in a month. So anyway, so just go to Adam Pierce's YouTube page, which we found here, and you see he does some great covers of look at that. Whoa, listen to the music.
Luscious.
You
hair.
never knew that about Adam Pierce. But
Last time I saw Adam Pierce,
anyway.
he had no hair, and now he's like got luscious hair. That's awesome.
Been a while.
He's looking good. He's apparently a fantastic
I do want to say, in all seriousness, if you are of the praying sort, Adam Pierce did tweet out today that his brother was aboard the naval vessel that had the explosion on it today in San Diego. And so, if you're of the praying sort, pray for him and his family, and just that those families and those servicemen are safe, servicemen and women.
Yeah. Agreed. And I also saw Lana tweet out that Rusev has contracted COVID-19 now. She had both her parents came up with it, and she just tweeted out now that her husband also has it. It's a real downer way for us to go in this shit right now.
Huh.
Oh.
Now I'm over here trying to find that particular Adam Pierce page you just had up. There it is.
What, you want the musicians page?
Yeah.
You want to see him play Learn to Fly by the Foo Fighters?
I want to hear, oh, listen to the music.
He does do that one. Yeah, and House of the Rising Sun, he's got that one also.
Oh, man.
All right, guys. Well, as things start to die down, I guess we're going to just start wrapping things up. If there's anything you want to check to talk. God, I'm losing it already. I'm seeing Alliance Wrestling in the chat is telling us to check out Scrap Iron. That's probably the proper YouTube page to go to. So make sure you do that if you want to watch that documentary. Front Row saying Tequila Gary is making me sad. Well, I don't know what I did to make you sad. Hey, am I supposed to be motivational? Front Row, you can do anything, sir. Front Row's already successful. Front Row's an amazing, successful man, and I am honored to know him. He is a fantastic dude. Anyway, we talked to Nick Aldis all night, the night before Crockett Cup 2019 about Game of Thrones. He had a lot of predictions about where that show was going. He was wrong on all of it, but just throwing that out there.
Don't tell Rob he was wrong, because Rob will try to say he was right.
Yeah, all this wasn't wrong. The writers of Gang of Thorns was wrong.
Game of Thorns.
Gang of Thorns.
Game of Thorns.
Oh man, we gotta land the plane. That's a phrase we'll just use, and I think it's great. Freebirds don't fight freebirds, says J Cal.
What does it have to do with us?
We are the Freebirds.
We're definitely not the Freebirds.
But are you a freebird, Rob? Like technically, I mean, if it I don't know. You're like the Jimmy Garvin of the group, if there ever was one.
I'll take it, man. I'll take it. He's a full Freebird, man. He was, like he said in his interview, when I was born in 1952, I was a Freebird. Boom. Everybody's like, "Oh, Jimmy Garvin wasn't original." Well, that's fine. You don't have to. Don't take my word for it. You're not arguing me. You're arguing against Michael Hayes and Jimmy Garvin themselves.
Take my word for it. I feel like a salesman.
All right. Hey, everybody in the chat, thank you so much for being here. Front row, you successful bastard. You beautiful man. You. It's so good to see you. James H. Jackson Jr., thank you. Robert Stinson, I see you in the chat when you should have been paying attention on the camera. Thank you. I see James Lawrence. Jonathan Darwin, thank you so much. It's been good to hang out with you guys. And Jay Cal, of course, for being there. You guys are beautiful people, and we love it's a front row tweet or message, the moderately priced birds. I just like that. All right. Anyway, we're going to wrap this thing up. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. As always, it's been a pleasure. We'll be right back here again on Tuesday night to hang out with you folks and talk some more wrestling. And did we decide on a topic for Tuesday night, or we just
not definitively? We'll
all right. We'll figure it out. We'll let you know. Hopefully sooner than later. By tomorrow, we'll let you know something.
Between the 2-day convalescence between today and Tuesday, we'll decide.
That's exactly right, and that is the perfect wording for it too. I will not argue with that. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you guys for all joining us. That's R Stinson 4 or RD Stinson or at whatever.
It don't matter. Ain't nobody follow me. I've only got like 500.
Follow him on the TikTok and the MySpace and the Tweet Hub or whatever it is.
Tweet Hub.
And at Hans Will and at This is Gary Horde and this is at the NWA Pod. We appreciate you guys, and you take care out there. And until Tuesday, enjoy your gravy cake, people.
Mm-hmm.
What was that?